Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Heavy on the Mr. Jim, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Conrad. How are you today?
Man, I am great, and I'm excited to be with you because we're doing something that you and I enjoy, but we don't get to do a lot. We're doing a watch-along from July 6, 1998. WCW fans will remember this is the famed Georgia Dome show where Hulk Hogan is going to square off and defend his world title against Goldberg in the main event. And it's going up against a pre-taped Raw where the Nation of Domination would, do a rather controversial skit. Actually, it was DX portraying the Nation of Domination, and there's a brawl for all and so much other stuff. But this is sort of the height of the Monday Night Wars here in 1998, is it not?
Yeah, it was, very competitive. A lot of good TV, kind of like Wednesday nights now with NXT and AEW. And so luckily on that deal, we're not going to lose 83 weeks in a row, but, nonetheless, yeah, it was a good time to be a wrestling fan, but quite frankly, Conrad, in our lives, when is not a good time to be a wrestling fan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think now is just as fun as a time to be a wrestling fan as any, just because you have so much more access and you get great podcasts like this, and you can interact with JR on Twitter at JR'sBBQ. And we hope you're following us on Twitter because you've got an opportunity to ask questions here on the show. It's at JR Grilling. But without further ado, we want you to fire up your WWE network right now. Go to In-Ring, find WCW Monday Nitro, select the year 1998, and scroll down until you see July 6th, 1998. And we're going to get busy, man. 2 hours and 19 minutes of Nitro. Jim, without further ado, you ready to get going, man? You fired up?
I'm ready, Conrad. Let's get it. I've never seen this show. Obviously, I was kind of busy that night. And I didn't make a habit of going back and watching the old Nitros. Somebody may find that as egocentric. It was just a time thing. Where do you find 2 hours and 6 minutes extra to go watch more wrestling? We had all we could say grace over in our end of the world. So I've never seen this before. It should be fun, and let's roll.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a countdown. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, play. And when I say play, you press play. I hope you've got your network fired up. Turn it down to mute. JR and I will try to entertain you. Occasionally I'll yell track it, and we'll play some audio. And we are going to take some breaks along the way to do some commercials. So we apologize for that. If you want this full experience sans commercials, join us over at adfreeshows.com, and you get to play it all the way through with no stops, no breaks, no commercials over at adfreeshows.com. So Jim, without further ado, I'm ready. If you're ready, here we go. 3, 2, 1, play. And we see the announcement from the prior Thunder here. James J. Dillon standing at the base of the set with a double-breasted Tony Schiavone. J.J. Dillon has looked 52 his entire life, has he not?
Yeah, he's timeless, ageless, and he still looks the same. His hair's a little whiter, but J.J. still always been a great asset to the pro wrestling business, a lifer, if you will. And I know a guy that when I got to WWE in '93 was always there for me. He was always straight up. We always got along well, and that relationship started when he was Dusty Rhodes' right-hand man in Jim Crockett Promotions. So it was always good to work with JJ. Never had a bad day with him, and he's a credit to our business without question.
This is the biggest Nitro in history at this point, of course. Bill Goldberg has caught fire. They're going to announce here on July 2nd, the prior Thursday, 4 days ahead of time, that he is going to get a title shot against Hulk Hogan on Nitro. Were you surprised that they made this announcement on Thunder, which is very much the B show, just 4 days ahead of time? This feels like a decision that they could have been criticized for a lot by sort of wrestling purists. A, for not doing it on pay-per-view, but B, not even giving it a big runway. It's just 4 days ahead of time. Is this more a testament to hot shot booking, or Turner's a television company? Damn the torpedoes when it comes to pay-per-views. What'd you make of this decision?
Well, it's all about the TV ratings and the competitive nature that they were living in at that time. Traditionally, it would be a little premature to book that huge match. And traditionally you would save that match for pay-per-view. But again, when you're owned by a television company, much like AEW is now, the bottom line, as old Stone Cold would say, is always about the ratings. So, but a great crowd, the Georgia Dome. I called the first football game ever in the Georgia Dome back in '92 when I was living in Atlanta and doing some work for the Falcons. So it's good to see that building full. It's good to see it full for any wrestling event, no matter what the capacity is, to see the building packed. And of course we miss that now, but it was they put all the whistles and bells, all the great pyro, it was a ballyhoo deal, man. I look at it as good booking, quite frankly. Traditionally you can always make the argument, was it hot shotting or whatever, but look, they're looking for ratings. They're looking to continue to bury WWE at the time. So, I got no issues with that booking.
I mean, look at the size of this crowd. It is really impressive, and a testament to the strength of the business as a whole, not just WCW and the Nitro property specifically, but to get this many people out to see wrestling is quite a spectacle and great for everyone in the biz.
Yeah. And of course the Nitro girls are kicking it off like a cheerleading squad, and got the people excited. Nobody ever really complains. There's beautiful athletic women in the ring, and either cheerleading as we're seeing here, a little dance routine, or wrestling. And of course, boy, has that landscape changed since 1998, where women are in the pro wrestling business. More women should be involved in pro wrestling in every area. It's not just an good old boys network. It should never have been, but it was for decades and decades. But I thank God it's changed now. But so the Nitro girls get there on camera. And now we go to the official announcer on camera, Larry Zbyszko. Oh, hi, Larry. I had a run with Bruno. And Tony Schiavone and Mike Tenay. Mike Tenay's kind of fell off the face of the earth, it seems like. I like the hell out of Mike, and I hadn't heard from him in a long time.
Look at how fucking high Tony Schiavone's chair is here. Is that not ridiculous?
Yeah, he looks like he's 6'4".
I like that, we're making this feel like a special show. We had the big crowd shot, the huge sweeping crowd shot. And then we see the big pyro. We go back to the Nitro girls, but now even when we go to the announce desk, the guys are dressed up. They're not wearing golf shirts like you would a lot of times see from a Larry Zbyszko. He's suited and booted, and Tony Schiavone, our master of ceremonies, wearing a tuxedo and a cummerbund. It's a special feel to a regular Monday night show, especially up against a taped Raw. I mean, yeah. I imagine on you guys' side of the aisle, they'll have to be a little nervous knowing this is where they're doing the show and that's what they're doing on the main event. And you can't really compete yet. You're still, live one week, tape the next.
Right. Yeah. The tape weeks are always vulnerable for us in that Monday Night War situation. But, it's called perseverance. We maximized every minute that we could. We continue to try to get new talent over. We got some guys, we started getting some guys pretty hot too, Conrad. And, so it was a very competitive situation, but yeah, it's a beautiful scene to see pro wrestling have that big an attraction. And the crowd shots are just phenomenal. I like all those 316s in the crowd. We know who they were thinking about.
Yes, we do.
Well, there's Eric, our Monday Night Warrior, and there's Hulk playing air guitar on his belt.
Listen, let's talk about that. You and I haven't spent a ton of time talking about, this version of Hulk Hogan, the bad guy who sort of led the NWO to the promised land for WCW. The business has never been hotter than at this point. Not just for the WWF, who are now, sort of turning things around in a major way since April. The 83-week streak for Nitro ended a few months prior to this, as we said, in April. And now it's back and forth. Austin McMahon is hot for you guys, and the NWO is as hot as ever here in July of 98. But now there's a newcomer in Goldberg, but sort of the guy who's been the guiding force for this whole movement for the NWO and helped take it to the next level, Hulk Hogan. And for years and years, he was the icon of wrestling, for better or worse. If you ask someone in pop culture, just walking the streets, name a pro wrestler, they'd probably come up with the name Hulk Hogan. But now the red and yellow's gone. Now he's a bad guy. Did you ever imagine, A, you would see Hulk Hogan abandon the red and yellow and become a bad guy, and B, that it would take fire like it did?
Well, I thought at the end of the day, it would be timely. I thought that probably it was going to be a no-brainer at some point if done correctly. He was a galvanizing figure, very polarizing to a lot of fans. So I wasn't shocked about it, quite frankly. But he did a good job. I mean, Hulk worked all the territories over this early part of his career, so he understood the psychology and the difference that it takes to make a great baby face, of which he was, and then subsequently to become a great villain, which he did a hell of a job. The only thing I've ever thought about the NWO is that at some point, it seemed to me, just as a fan, it started to become a little bit watered down.
Right.
Because adding so many people to it, I thought, Hall and Nash and Hogan were plenty. And then everybody else started getting the quote unquote rub. And I thought that was a little bit of a negative to the NWO, just my opinion. But Hogan did a good job, and Eric did a good job too. Eric was easy to dislike. And I say that in a theatrical sense. He was very easy to dislike, much like I used to say about Paul Heyman. I said, God almighty, you're easy to hate. And he looks at you incredulously. I said, that's a compliment, by the way. You're a heel. So it all worked out well.
This version of Hulk Hogan is a box office draw, and it's created in more recent years, especially on my shows, because I don't know that it ever really clicked for me that when Hogan was a babyface at his height in the mid to late 80s of the WWF, there was no one bigger. But then he comes behind it and just, turns wrestling on its ear again when he becomes a bad guy with the black and white hair. I don't know of many performers who did as good of a job as a babyface as they did as a heel, and vice versa. It feels like almost everywhere else there is a preference. Like Ric Flair was both, but I preferred his heel work, and I think most would agree. And Sting, I guess, briefly was a heel, but everybody, wants him to be a baby face. And I don't know. What about you? Where do you land? Do you think anybody ever did both roles, both good guy and bad guy, as well as Hogan? Are there any other names that pop to your mind?
Not at that level. Not at that level, because, when you look at Hogan's run as a baby face, it's extraordinary.
Right.
And no one as a pure baby face, as he was positioned at that time, carrying the entire WWF on his back, has done a better job of leading their company as the star than Hogan did. The only guy that comes to mind to me that rivals it was Stone Cold and The Rock, and that's pretty good company. So I don't think anybody I've seen has done both as well as Hogan did, and so he was perfect for this role. Boy, did he have a good tan. Conrad, that's the kind of tan you and I need. Yeah. See, Arn Anderson always says, remember this now, our fat looks better brown than white.
That is what he says.
And Hulk was browner than a brown. I mean, he was tan, brother.
Yes, super tan is the move, and we've even joked about that with Eric Bischoff quite a bit. Eric Bischoff here performing the old Tony Schiavone role of human mic stand, which we saw him do quite a bit during the Jim Crockett days. And then in the background, Brother Brudi. Has there ever been a guy who's I don't know, can you make any other comparisons for the Ed Leslie Hulk Hogan relationship over the years? I can't think of one.
just buddies, Brutus was there to be Hulk's valet in essence. It seemed like, his man Friday, whatever you want to say, respectfully. But yeah, uh, Brutus Beefcake got a great rub from Hogan, obviously, and it helped enhance his bookings in WWE, WWF. And the old saying was, when the guys got their booking sheets back in the day, they all looked to see where Hulk was booked, and then they'd scroll down to see if their name was on that same card, and that was what they wanted because they knew tickets would be sold and they'd make more money. So I think Ed Leslie, aka Brutus Beefcake, did very well in that respect because, as a favorite of Hulk, McMahon would book Brutus largely on Hogan's card. So it was a win-win for Brutus.
Without question. We should also mention that during this promo, what Hogan is saying is, the only way Goldberg's stepping in the ring with me tonight is if he gets through another member of the NWO. And if he beats that guy, then he gets a shot, but only if. So sorry, all you fans who were thinking you were going to see me wrestle Goldberg. It's not happening because my stablemate here in the NWO is going to beat him, and it's going to be a returning Scott Hall. So the story being, over this 3-hour Nitro, we're going to have Goldberg beat Scott Hall and go through Scott Hall in order to get to the big boss and the world title shot, Hulk Hogan. What do you think?
Yeah,
of the
you had to beat Silvio Dante to get to Tony Soprano. You had to beat one of the captains, and of course Scott was a big, huge star, and I don't know the Hall and Nash get enough credit for what they brought when they left WWE, what they brought to WCW. They really opened eyes to the whole the Atlanta scene. So I think it was a nice sign. Hogan fears Rogaine. Then you get all the Hogan impersonators with their bandanas and their peroxide mustaches and all that stuff. So they did a nice job of getting outside elements, fan comments like we're seeing here now, that type of stuff. WCW did the production people did a great job of capturing the emotion that was ongoing at that time.
And that's really what you're looking for. You're trying to, especially in this era, the shows were so exciting with the big presentation, the big pyro and the crowd reactions and the signs and just, there was excitement in the air in this era, and you've got to find a way to translate that to the guy at home in his recliner. And that's difficult, but I feel like, to your point, WCW did a fine job of that, just interviewing fans, which is a little thing, but it worked. And here we see another hallmark of the era, a merch commercial early in the program, and it's shot NWO style. So sort of black and white with all the different camera angles, and pushing the Hulk Hogan t-shirt. And look how different the world is here. Send a money order to this PO box in Birmingham. It's no longer just click on your phone and it's on the way.
Yeah. So much easier now to shop online. And quite frankly, Conrad, during this virus, when you have a book come out that you worked 2 years on, you kind of start worrying about, well, what are we going to do when the bookstores are closed? Well, thank God we have social media and we have digital and all that stuff to keep things alive. Didn't have it back in those days. And of course, there's our old pal Mean Gene. God, I loved him. And he's, who's this cat he's interviewing? Some NASCAR guy?
They're giving away a car here. I guess this was a
Valvoline guy.
Yeah. Some sort of little promotional thing that they were doing on the show to legitimately give away a race car. And, obviously Valvoline has been sponsoring WCW for as long as I was watching anyway. They sponsor replays and things like that. Sort of the same thing here, which is, interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Well, it's just good. Those value added things just brought in more money. The Valvoline sponsorship was a big deal for, WCW, obviously, big sponsor. They pay their bills, all that good stuff. So, good value added for WCW, to go outside the box, bring in advertisers, bring in promotional partners. And, this is a good example. No better guy to hawk that, to talk about it than Mean Gene. And, he looks good there too.
Meltzer would write, although an attendance figure of 39,919 was given on the broadcast, when all is said and done, the actual number in the building was 41,412. which was a sellout for the configuration set up, and there were a few hundred fans turned away, with 36,506 of them paying $906,330, which destroyed the previous company record for Nitro in the same building back on January 6th, when they had 26,773 fans with 23,058 paying. Really process what we're talking about here. They ran a Nitro in January and have 26,000 fans. And now just 5 months later, or 6 months later rather, here we are with 41,000 fans. The business continues to climb. I know a lot of people, myself included, maybe prefer the creative from 1997, but 1998, we are steadily getting bigger with every passing month.
Yeah. The talent kept getting over. More talent started getting over, being recognized as stars. Great example here. You're starting to show off with Dean Malenko and Booker T, 2 Hall of Fame guys. And so, and they're finally getting their recognition. They're finally getting their spotlight. So, that process was just not unlike our process at that time. New guys kept getting over. A guy, like that was the era where Triple H started getting over.
Yeah.
A lot of guys just started to click, and they grabbed a hold of their audience, and the audience reciprocated. So it's the same thing here. And now you've got Booker T, and who looks great, and it's hard to. It's the Booker T looks so unique without his dreads, which we're grown accustomed to. But here he's got more of a traditional style. But Malenko, God, how good is Malenko? He's just anybody that worked with Malenko got better, and that's I'm so happy that we have Dean on our staff at AEW as one of the coaches. He's an invaluable resource and very valued, quite frankly. Dean's battling Parkinson's, hadn't slowed him down a bit. He's at work and contributing, and it's always a pleasure to see him. He's probably one of the funniest guys behind the scenes of anybody I've ever known in the wrestling business.
What a remarkable size difference too. I think maybe some of our listeners who haven't had an opportunity to meet Booker T in real life, he is deceptively big, and in a business filled with giants. I don't know that anybody ever thinks Booker T is a giant, but Booker T and Billy Gunn are 2 of the guys that stand out to me the most, as people just sort of don't realize just how big these fellas are. I mean, they're probably what, 6'5", 6'6"?
Yeah. Booker's probably 6'4", 5. Yeah. He's rangy, long, very athletic. I remember talking to Booker T before he went to Hall of Fame about, but long before that, quite frankly, about sharing his real story of his past. And now he's reclaimed his life after his prison stint. And he included that and mentioned me in his Hall of Fame speech for giving him that motivation. Don't be ashamed of your past. None of us can change our past. We can only remember it, memorize it, whatever. We can't change it. And we also can't change the future. So today's the day, and Booker T has a great opportunity, goes for a missile drop kick off the top, which Malenko so expertly moved out of the way to avoid that contact. I could watch Dean Malenko and Booker T wrestle all day. There's an inside cradle counter. Malenko kicks out, but I could watch these guys wrestle all day long. I just so much admire Booker's work and Dean and what they contribute to our business. It's an honor to know both guys as well as I do.
Meltzer would be pretty critical of the decision to do this show, this main event, without it being on pay-per-view. And I mean, that's really going to dominate the discussion about this show for years and years. And I think it's so fascinating that right at the top of the show, you sort of get it. I mean, Bischoff has always defended it, saying, you don't understand. We weren't a traditional wrestling company. We were a television company. Turner is a television company, and they own the programming. So we're trying to serve television masters, not necessarily, draw grade on house shows and sell pay-per-views and sell merch. Yes, all of that matters, but they're all secondary to the television product. And right at the top of the show, you sort of got that.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. It was, that's why the Clash of Champions were created. Ratings.
Right.
There was a motivation to counter program McMahon's pay-per-views. We all know about that story. We've talked about that here. But bottom line, there's Chris Jericho interrupting these guys just like he did The Rock in Chicago when he made his debut. If Jericho's not the MVP of AEW, I don't know who is.
Right.
And he's always had amazing talent, and he's now interrupting the match verbally. So, but yeah, I understand the Clash was the same deal. For Turner, it wasn't about. As a matter of fact, they did not like the heat they got from the cable operators for trying to lessen the productivity of WWF pay-per-views, even though the WWF was coming after us at that time than WCW. So I think that this is this way it is. I mean, ratings is king, and when people say it's not about the ratings, they're bullshitting you. It's always about the ratings. Well, there's somebody jacked up on Diet Mountain Dew with a Coca-Cola T-shirt on or tank top.
What a shot this is. Bill Goldberg doing push-ups with his feet on one chair and a hand on either chair, sort of suspending himself for some air push-ups. Nice little shot. And what's fascinating to me is just, and we see a little promo here from Karl Malone. We should mention we're on the march to Bash at the Beach. We're fresh on the heels of what a lot of us just saw and relived a couple of months ago, the Chicago Bulls, quote unquote, last dance. The Bulls would play the Jazz in the finals. And now, as timing would have it, not too terribly long after, it's going to be Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone on pay-per-view with DDP and Hulk Hogan. There's just so much going on. I mean, speaking of 30 for 30s, just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the 30 for 30 about Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and their march for the Roger Maris home run record. Also happening in this same era in 1998, and not too terribly long after Goldberg would win the world title here, he would do a photo shoot with Mark McGuire and and McGuire would rub his bat on Goldberg's chest. 1998 was a hell of a time, not just to be a wrestling fan, but a sports fan, was it not?
Oh yeah. Well, we're still talking about it. They're still making specials and documentaries about it. So yeah, it was a huge time, no doubt. I thought that more could have been made of the NBA connection of the rivalry between the Bulls and the Jazz, because, Karl Malone's a hell of a nice guy, really a nice guy, and has an affinity for driving big rigs back in the day from Louisiana. He grew up as a huge Mid-South wrestling fan, did Karl Malone, growing up in northern Louisiana. So when I met Karl here, there, and yon, he always wanted to talk about that. And now we got the late Chris Kanyon and Raven trying to get something going here in a match. Chris Kanyon was a very talented guy. I was talking to my friend Raphael Morphy the other day, who just had a birthday not too long ago, and he said, he went to grammar school and high school with Kanyon. They'd known each other all their life, and many of us were shocked when Chris left us very, very early, and not so much the fact that he came out as gay. I think, I don't know. I had no issues with that at all. People got a right to live their life as long as they're doing it legally and ethically any way they want. So I never did understand all that stuff. Too much was made about Chris Kanyon being gay than the fact that Chris Kanyon was a hell of a wrestler. And he was very fundamentally sound, innovative, and had great passion. But the story about Chris Kanyon's legacy should not be, oh yeah, he was gay. Come on. You got to have a better story than that.
I think about Kanyon a lot because, ultimately we know that, Kanyon would take his life and pass away way too soon, way too young. But if he was around today, man, how much would he enjoy the style of wrestling today and some of the innovation and things like that from some of the guys you work with every week, like the Young Bucks or Kenny Omega? I feel like he would be an AEW cheerleader in a major way.
I think so. Yeah. Especially with his old schoolmate, Raphael Morphy there.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys that he knew. Chris was very innovative. I think at this stage of his life, if he had been still with us, he had been a real good coach.
Yeah.
Teacher type thing, agent, whatever you want to call them. Everybody's got a different word for coaches, agents, teachers, producers, whatever hell, I think that's a little bit blown out of proportion too. But Kanyon did, he's working there with Raven, and Scotty Levy he was very underrated. I saw him when we were still touring at pre-virus. I got a chance to see him in I think it was Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he was, as glib and very, very high IQ. Sometimes Scotty was just his own worst enemy. I said this about myself before, given too much free time, I have been prone to make bad decisions. And I think the same thing could be said about Scotty. I didn't go to his extreme. So, but nonetheless, very talented guy. And he had a chance to do really good work in WWE. Just didn't, at the end of the day, just didn't work out. I thought he would be a great broadcaster because, like I said, he has a very high IQ. He processes information fast and accurately. Little suplex off the top.
Through a chair. Unbelievable spot. And here comes Perry Saturn, a former member of Raven's Flock. Of course, these guys were old ECW running mates. Saturn was one half of the Eliminators, and here comes Lodi, and Lodi's gonna take a big Taz style suplex there. What'd you think of
nice? That was the nice belly to belly overhead. Takes a lot of power to do that, and Saturn has strong legs and popped his hips real well, and then a Death Valley driver. Now he's going to do a little fall away slam with the Raven. This match has gone to hell.
Yes, it has. And he's pulling out a table, and this does not look like a lot of the other wrestling tables.
No, and it's the second match.
Yeah.
So you're using tables and gimmicks and run-ins on the second match. I would have an issue with that if I was going to critique this show. You kind of went to the gimmicks real early, and now so are you going to say that nobody else the entire night, and I don't know this, is going to not use a table? So you're going to protect these guys. So are you really going to protect these guys, or are you going to save the table spot for something higher up on the card? And obviously the choice is made to let them have their fun and use the gimmicks. And so now Raven's on the table, Saturn's going up top. So we've seen this. It was a spectacular thing then, and the table didn't break.
No, that's a real table sign. That is not a gimmick table.
So that could not have felt good for Raven.
No.
He's selling well on the floor, but again, this is kind of a thing that got some criticisms for WCW at times on how they manage their matches and their shows, where it seemed like to some folks, and I've been told this by guys that wrestled there that came to work for us later on, that the creative time was spent on the top guys. And here's a great example. So you got this match ongoing. You just saw a table spot. Now you got a black limo pulling up outside, and so we've left the match to do this. To do this.
I think that was a DQ, and so now what we're seeing is Buff Bagwell's mom helping Buff out of the limo while the limo driver pulls the wheelchair around, and here you see Buff in the neck brace. As a reminder, this is a follow-up from a real life situation where Buff was wrestling against the Steiner brothers live on Thunder, and he went to take the top rope bulldog. His head slips out. His head would hit Steiner's back, and he would lay motionless for several minutes. A very scary scene on a live Thunder. And now in the middle of Nitro, while there's a bunch of fans waiting for autographs in the back, Judy is going to wheel Buff in. And you had some interactions with Buff and Judy over the years. Did you know it?
Not much. I mean, that's been blown out of proportion, Conrad. That's old news. We had a conversation on the phone once. I wanted to talk to Mark, not to her. In all due respect, I'd never met the lady. I didn't know her. I have no issues with her. It's just I've made it clear that when Mark had something to talk about in his WWE run, as abbreviated as it was, he should just call me. Simple as that. That's how it went. But it became a story, and it really wasn't a story.
I got to tell you, I loved the idea of when I was trying to put together a star cast of getting Judy Bagwell to that first star cast and getting a forklift and doing a Judy Bagwell on a pole photo op. That would have been tremendous, but it wasn't to be.
Jesus Christ.
Tell me that wouldn't be a great photo of you standing underneath the forklift.
Were you drunk when you thought that idea?
No, I didn't make it happen though. Overall though, this idea that we're seeing now, and wow, Mrs. Hickenbottom, before she was Mrs. Hickenbottom Whisperers. Roll Tide here.
They changed their attire too. You notice the wardrobe change?
Yeah, they got more wardrobe changes than J-Lo did here in 98. But talk to me about this concept, a cheerleading outfit, if you will. I mean, we see it for every other sports organization. Why not wrestling? That's probably the thinking. Over the years, WWE tried this a few different times, but never really stuck with it. Meanwhile, the Nitro girls became a staple. You for it? Against it? What'd you think?
They had no problem with it. It was different in a sense that nobody else is doing it on that level, to that degree. And we think about demographics. The primary target demographic for pro wrestling has long been males, 18 to 49. They're broken down to 18 to 34, that type of thing. So most young males like to look at beautiful women. I know there are exceptions to the rule. I get it. But bottom line is, it was a situation where they knew that the young males were not going to turn the TV off if all these hot chicks are dancing in their attire, and none of them were flat chested. How about that? I just noticed that. And neither was Tony Schiavone. He was back on camera. Tony even combed his hair for the show. I love that part of it.
And this is in the era where Tony would shower once a week, whether he needed it or not.
Well, there's no sense in ruining your epidermis. I mean, you can't just keep rubbing and scrubbing.
Ruining your epidermis. If that's not a t-shirt soon, I don't know what we're doing over here. We should mention, by the way, you've got a lot of tremendous shirts for sale that we don't talk about enough over at JimRossShirts.com. And if you haven't taken a look in a while, I highly recommend it. You said something I guess it was a couple months now, back on the pay-per-view for AEW, where you tapped Excalibur on the shoulder and you said, "You've sold enough now. Good job." That's a t-shirt. I saw logs. That's also a t-shirt. The Almighty Push, a caricature of a fat dog. And it says, the junk food dog. Just so many hilarious shirts over at JimRossShirts.com.
That push thing, I got to have my push. You got to get my push. It's all about the push. No, it's not, idiot. It's about your work. Great work will overcome your lack of push, because wrestling promoters are always looking for something new and good. So reinvent. That's the thing about Hogan we talked about earlier. Hogan reinvented himself as a heel. He had the courage to get out of his comfort zone. He had the courage to get out of it wearing his yellow and red and go in the black attire, the NWO thing, the whole 9 yards. He had courage to do that. So I appreciate people like that. I really do. But boy, you're getting a lot of Hogan on the show. Yeah,
we're seeing a rewind from the prior Nitro where Karl Malone is driving an 18-wheeler to Nitro with a police escort. I don't know if that made sense, but that's exactly what's happening. There are 8 cop cars escorting a giant 18-wheeler with the trailer behind it to Nitro to interrupt Hulk Hogan. And of course, he's going to be met by the NWO, and not just Virgil and Brian Adams, but Scott Steiner and Bret Hart and the
Big
Giant.
Show.
Yeah. There's lots of big stars here, but they're all scared of the horn. And out we see DDP climb from the cab of the truck, and he hands a chair, the weapon of choice. And Jim, if you and I were ever in sort of a barroom brawl type situation, maybe somebody breaks into the house there in Oklahoma. I know the first thing you're going to look for is a cookie sheet or a folding chair, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have folding chairs hidden in this house right now. I have secret compartments where metal folding chairs are stored. And by God, folks, don't think I won't use it. Don't make me come out there.
I'm just telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you show up at JR's house, he will obliterate you with cookie sheets, folding chairs, and just to make sure he knows you're dead, leg slaps.
The goddamn leg slaps are killing me. And I'm so glad that people are paying attention to the leg slappers. Come on. That's passe too. That's like having these tope suicidas in every other match. And nobody ever wins with it. It's just a spot. It's the same category as a side headlock takeover. It's a spot. It's not new anymore. And for God's sakes, fellas, come on, ladies, whoever it may be, stop the goddamn leg slapping, side slapping, ass slapping. Come on. It's embarrassing to me. And I know I'm old school and crotchety and cranky sometimes. Not today, but cranky sometimes. But Jesus Christ, I just don't get it. I quit calling it. I don't react well to the leg slapping enhanced audio. So that's just me, and I may be wrong, folks. So don't take this for gospel. There's our man Mean Gene back in the ring.
Yeah, we just saw a terrible clothesline from Karl Malone that Hulk Hogan had to go ahead and sell for. And then the trash came raining in. And that is something you and I haven't talked a lot about as we see Karl Malone and DDP make their way to the ring. But with Hulk Hogan turning heel back at Bash at the Beach 1996 to show their disapproval and disgust with their hero becoming a bad guy and siding with these outsiders, fans filled the ring with garbage. Just every sort of cup or drink or trash they could get their hands on, they threw into the ring. And that almost became a thing, for like 96, 97, 98. And the NWO did it so frequently. I mean, it happened every week on Nitro where fans were just throwing trash. You guys actually had some pretty scary incidences with the WWF along the way with fans going too far, right?
Oh yeah. I wasn't for that stuff. Because the deal is that you always think about things, at least I do in this world, as the worst case scenario. What happens if Austin gets sick or gets hurt, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That time, you always figure out the worst case scenario and how will we deal with that? What happens if somebody throws something in the ring and it hits somebody in the face, damages their vision? Oh, well, we're just having fun. We're just fans. We have a right. I bought a ticket. I can do whatever I want. No, you can't. So, it just, that was not good. And the other thing that they threw a lot, people were dipping snuff or chewing tobacco.
Oh, gross.
And so they got the goddamn spit juice in these cups and they're throwing those in the ring. So how can any of that be good? It's not cool. It isn't cool. It never was cool, but it became a little bit of a trend. And thank God it like many things in wrestling, it came and went.
Yeah. Thankfully that one's gone. What'd you think of, DDP teaming with Karl Malone against Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman? I mean, as a spectacle, as something to grab the mainstream, the timing really couldn't have been any better. I mean, they would even have, an opportunity to promote this on the Tonight Show, which we know how that's going to work out with Jay Leno becoming involved, but that's a story for another day. But Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman, two of the biggest names in athletics, fresh off of their finals for the NBA championship. This is maybe the best timing ever for the use of real celebrities or quote, mainstream celebrities. But what did you think of the decision for DDP to be the guy across from Hulk Hogan?
It proves once again that DDP is an amazingly gifted strategist. And he is also very gifted as a self-promoter. The other thing about this and the reality of it is that in the match with Hogan, Rodman, and the Mailman, DDP was the best worker. So he could at least lead a match, be at the right place at the right time to overcome the lack of skill, in-ring skill for wrestling that Malone and Rodman had. So DDP was a very strategic guy. And, he's a great, as we see now on social media and his yoga stuff he does, which he does a great job doing. He's always seemingly at the right place at the right time for his career. So I've said this many times. He's the greatest overachiever that I've ever been around in wrestling. For someone he worked his ass off to become a really good in-ring performer. But it didn't start out that way, and so consequently, he just kept reinventing and making himself better, et cetera, et cetera. So, he's a great self-promoter, man. And he was the right place, put himself with Malone, the big babyface team. Now they're going through the crowd, this massive crowd in the Georgia Dome. And by the way, Meltzer mentioned the real attendance was 41 and change, but the building held 70. I would not have turned a damn soul away. If you want to come to this event, why they had it configured for this? because apparently they weren't totally confident they'd sell that setup out. But as it worked out, they could have sold a whole lot more tickets. And to me, that's one of the bigger regrets of this situation.
See a little promo here from Mongo talking about, his days on the gridiron. Let's track this Mongo promo.
Look at the Horsemen. They didn't win championships. They went out and took them. Limousine rides, Lear jets, people lining up by the thousands to get their autographs. That is what I like. That's what I want to be a part of. I'm here to talk to you and everybody else out there about where I've been and where I want to go, why I came into the WCW. Do you understand? I got to walk out on that Soldier Field grass, brother, and my voice is quivering talking about it right now. The adrenaline is starting to flow again. An all-pro, a Super Bowl champion, the top of that profession, baby.
What Steve had,
So we've got a whole little segment here building up Mongo. We should remind everybody when he first becomes involved with WCW as a broadcaster on Nitro, and then eventually joins the Horsemen. But in this particular era, Ric Flair is still in a bit of a standoff with Eric Bischoff, and they even did a story about it the prior day in the Atlanta papers. So that story is the talk of the locker room on this particular day, where Flair was interviewed and he said, "Hey, I've been vented on enough. I had to draw a line." So now he's suing WCW and WCW suing him back. And that sort of leaves some of the existing Horsemen members without really a place to land, like Dean Malenko, like Chris Benoit, like Mongo. And we're trying to sort of build up Mongo here and get a little interview from Mike Ditka to add some legitimacy. And this is something that you have been a big proponent of, talking about guys' real athletic backgrounds. And that's probably the formula that made the most sense for Mongo, given his success in the NFL, right?
Yeah, but he was not ready. He was never ready to be in the ring. We've seen things on social, Mongo's,
that's our Mongo. What a great Twitter account.
Yeah. I'm trying to turn this goddamn Alexa off. What the hell do you want? Now it's repeating everything I'm saying here. Holy shit. Me and my technical lack of expertise. If I had a DVR, it'd still be flashing 12. But I don't. But Mongo, the story there is, to finish my thought, Steve McMichael was a great athlete. He was an all-pro. He did win a Super Bowl in 1985. And he was a great college player at Texas. And you don't hear me say that much. He was. But his skill in the ring never quite ever got close to replicating his success on the gridiron. So I like the guys that have those legitimate backgrounds because they fit well in the locker room. They're team guys. They can play through some injuries or bumps and bruises. They're used to that. And usually they're very competitive. They don't want to be second. They don't want to suck hind teat. T-E-A-T. Look it up, kids. But Mongo, as a big a personality as he was never, he was in the ring in a too high a level. You don't put a guy that can't wrestle to a significant degree in the Horsemen. And the Horsemen was another group I thought became watered down, adding this guy, taking this guy away, adding this person. It just didn't work. So, anyway, I have a lot of respect for Steve McMichael as a football player. And of course, I'm sure when he started broadcasting, Conrad, how many times do you think he went to the studio and practiced?
Right.
How many times you get somebody like Tony Schiavone or a Mike Tenay or somebody that had experience to sit down with him and call matches to get him better? I doubt if he got the chance to do that, and that's not fair to Mongo. So then all of a sudden he gets put into these in these wrestling matches, and he's just simply not ready.
We see right now Scotty Riggs, friend of the show, taking on Scott Putski, the son of Ivan Putski. We've talked a little bit about second generation wrestlers and what guys like Eric Watts may have had to go through at different times, and for whatever reason, just never achieved the success that a lot of people would have assumed based on the push and the positioning. And Putski here, hell of a look, came out dressed, I don't know, like a pirate. I don't know, but quite the look. And he's in phenomenal shape. He's got the long hair. I mean, he looks like a wrestler. Why didn't he hit for you guys or WCW, do you think?
Same reason a lot of guys don't hit. They just couldn't connect to the audience. He didn't have the natural charisma that his dad did. You know, his uncle, Fred Bednarski, was one of the great kickers in college football history. And of course, as they all called him, Joe Bed in the locker room. Ivan was just a short guy. I saw him at a card show thing a couple of years ago, and I didn't even recognize him because he seemed like he may have weighed less than 200 pounds. You know, I didn't realize I couldn't remember. He was like 5'8" or 5'9", something like that. So, but I didn't even recognize his dad. But he couldn't step out of that shadow that his dad had established. So, just connecting with the audience, I think at the end of the day, that may have been something that hampered Lex Luger. Naturally and organically connecting with your audience. The other side of that coin is look at a guy like Austin or Rock or Undertaker. They found the link to connect to that audience, the ticket buying public that's buying products and pay-per-views and T-shirts and tickets and so forth and so on. So, but Scott just never had that. Now, the women loved him, but he just didn't have that skill set and that natural charisma. You know, he's getting Scotty Riggs is dominating this match. It's almost like an enhancement match, and it wasn't, but it looked like that.
Yeah, we should we should mention Meltzer's not too kind. He writes, Scott Putski pinned Scotty Riggs with a form of a powerbomb in 4 minutes and 15 seconds. How come Putski wasn't arrested? Not for using a powerbomb, but for impersonating a pro wrestler.
Stiff. Dave Meltzer's stiff today. Back then. Yeah, well, hey, the kid he tried. He did. He always seemed like he had good effort. I don't know sometimes that Scott's heart was totally into the profession. I don't know that a lot of these second generation guys that we can talk about that have not gone on to equal the success of their fathers. You wonder sometimes if this is really what they always wanted to be.
Right.
Or did they say that to make dad proud or because they felt like it was their obligation?
Right.
So that he may fall into that category, Conrad, quite frankly. Now he gets his comeback. So you can always tell how much body English you see in a comeback, excitement, movement, athleticism. He's begging the crowd to cheer for him. And he's using his dad's Polish hammer signal. So that just takes you right back to his father. And that might not be the best source of best tactic for him. But nonetheless, his comeback is lasting too long. So he had a comeback going, and a lot of guys do this. So then we're going to get our second set of heat. He started his comeback, and then all of a sudden, now the heel's getting back in the game. Scotty Riggs as the heel, and there's that power bomb, as my broadcast partner Josh Barnett, you say a power bomb variant. So you never put your hands over your head unless you've been beat to hell on a knee. Get your ass up, acknowledge the crowd, stand up tall, stand up proud, and see what you get. And now he's doing it, and he's getting a nice little reaction.
I think our timing may be off just a little bit. I think I might be slightly ahead of you. I'm seeing a replay brought to us by Snickers here, but we're still close enough for government work, as they like to say here in the South.
Conrad, I just hit the 10-second fast forward thing. I'm back with you. I'm a pretty fucking brilliant technical guy. I'm an IT I may be Mr. IT in a second life.
Let me ask, as you just say that, is your Alexa still running right now, or did it finally shut up?
It shut up. God almighty. I don't know why I did that. I forget I even have it, quite frankly.
Oh, by the way, we got a few tweets about it. So and here we get a live look at Goldberg in the back, headbutting a locker. Boy, now that we know what we know about head trauma, that's less than advisable.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
And here we see a package on the Goldberg streak. I'm going to track it here.
The ring and put the jackhammer on Hugh Morris in Salt Lake City. That this was the beginning of a phenomenal rise to stardom for one Goldberg. And he said right there, that's number one. And By golly, as we begin hour number 2, 106 later tonight, if you can make it 107 and 108, Goldberg will do the incredible. And
I got to talk to you about that. We haven't really touched on it, but this really is the beginning of, or not the beginning, but the culmination of the streak. I mean, we know that the streak is going to come to an end at Starrcade later this year with the silly cattle prod and the whole deal. But man, the streak with Goldberg really caught fire for WCWO, and it's going to be revealed. Let's track it.
Scott Hall. Love here tonight.
Goldberg trying to go to school, you punk.
So the opponent tonight for Goldberg to get ready for Hulk Hogan that Goldberg has to go through before he gets that title shot is Scott Hall. Scott Hall had been away, and you saw even as he stepped out of limo, he had a drink in his hand and put the drink on the top of the limo. So they're sort of bringing some realism to the real life challenges behind the scenes that the quote unquote smart fans are familiar with. But a returning Scott Hall, who is clearly a big star, he's going to be 107 for Goldberg. And if he can complete that one, then Hulk Hogan is next. But the idea of numbering the matches and the victories, and this being really a streak before the Undertaker streak was a thing at WrestleMania. What'd you think of that? I mean, Bruce has been critical of it over the years, saying, well, goddamn, anybody can get over if they never fucking lose, but that's not what wrestling is built on. And Bobby Heenan, I think, would be critical and say, hey, when they beat the streak, WCW was dead. It was the hottest thing we had, and we killed the golden goose. Where do you land on the unbeaten streak of Bill Goldberg?
Well, it worked. That's all I can say. You know, I respect Bruce's opinion, quite frankly, but I disagree with him politely. I think that it worked. It brought attention in a positive light to a star who had average skills. And look, I officiated high school football in Oklahoma when Bill Goldberg was a defensive tackle, the best defensive lineman in the state, before he went to Georgia on a full football scholarship. He played high school football at Tulsa Edison High School. So I've known Bill Goldberg since a teenager. So I really have a lot of respect for Bill, but Bill had average skills. And he had a limited moveset. Nothing wrong with that, because he stayed in his wheelhouse more often than not. You know what I mean, Conrad? He didn't try. You didn't see any tope el suicidas from.
He wasn't pulling out Hurricane Ranas. He's doing power moves that work well with what he can do.
Yeah, and so I didn't have a problem with the streak. It's a talking point, and it is a common thing in the sports vernacular. So streaks, you know, Tom Brady's won 6 Super Bowls, and numbers are important in sports. Mm-hmm. And I thought they did a good job with that. There's Chris Jericho is bringing J.J. Dillon in the ring. It must be khaki pants night for the administrators, because me and Gene's got on khakis. J.J.'s got on khakis.
Let's track this, because Jericho's doing his best work of his career here.
Need to get a couple things straight. To start with, a little charade that you pulled last Thursday on Thunder with a little mini dressed up like Rey Mysterio, that's not going to fly with the executive committee.
Rey Mysterio Jr.
No. You are still going to meet the Ultimate Dragon here tonight. And you're still going to meet...
Uh-oh, hold on here. JJ does not need to be in the middle of this thing.
Hey, hold it. You both have been put on written notice that there's to be no physical contact between either of you prior to Bash at the Beach on Sunday. And if either of you makes a move and touches the other, it's immediate disqualification for Bash at the Beach. There is no interpretation. Now, you both know that. I expect you to be on your best behavior.
Hold on a second, crazy man. So you mean if Dean Malenko touches me after I say, your mother wears army boots, then he's suspended? If Dean Malenko touches me if I say, you're nothing but a talentless jobber, then he's suspended? If Dean Malenko touches me if I say, Your dad must be real proud of you, and he would probably love to shake your hand. If only he was alive to do so. You're suspended?
You realize what he's trying to do? Don't do it. He's trying to bait you. Come on, you're the Iceman. Don't go for this. You got what you want Sunday at Bash at the Beach. Don't let him suck you in. Have you ever stopped to think for 1 minute, he's not going to go for this? And you keep running your mouth and putting your foot in it, you're going to have to face him in a no disqualification match on Sunday. You keep saying what you're saying, and going into that match, you're just asking for it.
You're right. But wait, there's one more thing I want to say, Dean. You and I have a lot in common. I know you don't think so, but you and I are two of a kind. Your father was a pro athlete. My father was a pro athlete. We both grew up without our father's guidance. We both grew up with our fathers on the road, missing him, just as your young daughter misses you while you're on the road, Dean. And think about your dad. Think about how lonely he must have been. Every night in a different city, every night in a different hotel. He must have craved human companionship. And think about how hard it must have been for your mother. And have you ever wondered why you and your brother look absolutely nothing alike?
That's enough. That's enough. He snapped.
What a great little angle. I mean, this is really the first time, or this era, I guess for about 6 or 7 months at this point, they've let Jericho sort of do his thing. And 98 is really his breakout year. And it's because of stuff like this. I thought that was really, really well done. And it showed a lot of quote unquote storyline and character for this cruiserweight division, which has previously just been about the in-ring competition. Well, now we've got some meat on the bone. What'd you think?
Liked it. I liked it. I'm a big fan of Jericho and Malenko's work. Dean didn't say a word in that promo, and the promo was red hot.
Yep.
And that's not knocking Dean. It was just his facials really worked well. And but yeah, Jericho did great. And look, that was that thing. Performances like that, Conrad, were one of the things that really motivated me to recruit and try to sign Chris.
Mm-hmm.
That famous meeting at the Bombay Bicycle Club in Tampa where Jerry Briscoe went with me, and we had a great chat with Chris about philosophy and just wrestling in general, life in general. And then I got him in front of Vince, so it was good stuff there. So Chris's work at that point in time was as good as anybody on the WCW roster. It's just the fact that he got put in that size category. Cruiserweight, kiss of death. You know, one time Sean Waltman said, "Are you paying me by the pound?" Because he was a quote unquote cruiserweight. And then we had the brilliant idea in WWE at one time to call them lightweights, even worse. So what's next? In our coming up next, we have a bantamweight matchup between two men that weigh 160.
I got to tell you, I absolutely love Ultimo Dragon in this era. He was one of my favorites to watch, but Meltzer in this era was also doing like breakdowns of, who was drawing ratings, who was hurting. And, believe it or not, he would say that, hey, if you're Mike Tyson, you're going to go up plus 4.6. If you're Randy Savage, it'll be plus 3.6. If you're Roddy Piper, it'll be plus 3.4. So this is how you affect the ratings. And so when I see this full list, I, like a lot of people, probably just say, hey, who's at the top and then who's at the bottom. The person who was worse for ratings in this era was apparently the Midnight Express with a negative 3.8. But believe it or not, like 5 or 6 up, there's Ultimo Dragon with minus 2.29. And I just would have never guessed that Ultimo Dragon was a channel changer. Why do you think that is? I mean, it feels like sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to these ratings, and maybe sometimes we give them too much credit, but I don't know. I think the presentation is cool. Like his look and his moveset is just phenomenal.
That's the deal. He had a unique look, unique size, but the key thing to me was his innovation.
Right.
Ultimo Dragon created a lot of movesets and sequences that a lot of guys are still using today. But he was unique. He was different. Again, those words keep coming up about guys getting over. Be different. And and Ultimate Dragon was, and he was very skilled, and guys loved working with him. He was safe, but his work looked very snug and very stiff, and so and here comes Malenko back. Are you and I on the same page yet?
Yeah, we are. And Malenko is going to wind up being arrested, I believe, for this. Even though I don't think they ever explicitly say what the charges are. And I think Meltzer would even be critical of it in the newsletter, saying they only did the Malenko arrest because Austin had been arrested a few times. And maybe WCW thought, hey, that's what it takes to get over in wrestling. Now you have to arrest a guy.
Yeah, I noticed all the guys come in the ring. Doug Dillinger wearing jeans, tennis shoes. See, I would not have gone for that. You don't look official.
Right.
And I'm not knocking Doug. It's Doug. I mean, Doug was just, but his Ricky Santana's in there, jeans. Just didn't feel they should have been in at least shirt and tie and a pair of slacks.
How about Malenko, pulling clumps of hair out of Chris Jericho's head there?
Yeah, well, he works snug, and there's proof that he does. So Malenko and look, Dean was getting more than just a regular old cup of coffee here as he's being handcuffed. He got some shine, and he took advantage of it with the great facial expressions. Just pros. Everything's on point. Eyes, face, everything on point.
We should mention in 1997, Pro Wrestling Illustrated named him in their PWI 500 the #1 best wrestler in the world. And it was a bit of a shocker because historically they had tried to place the guys who were quote unquote on top. And here we see yet another version of the Nitro girls with another costume change.
Yeah, man. They, same pants, I've noticed. I pay attention to these kind of things, Conrad.
You for that.
And thank God for abs. Something I'll never have in my lifetime. I live in an ab-free world, in JR's world.
No, you've had your fair share of abs. They just weren't ever attached to you. Well, not for very long.
Right. But these guys, now they're advertising a Nitro party.
Yeah,
they did a great job marketing these ladies, and then all of a sudden it was gone.
What do you think of the Nitro party idea? Hey, film yourself having a party watching Nitro and send it to us, and we may play it on the show, and we might even come bring the party to you. That feels like something Vince would have gone for once upon a time.
Well, we did something like that with Dr. Death and myself at a fraternity party somewhere in upstate Albany or someplace. We had done something along those lines. Good idea. Anything that you can utilize to motivate groups of fans to gather and enjoy and party while watching a broadcast is a good thing.
Right.
So no issue there. Here comes Johnny Swinger. That'd been your name. Conrad Swinger. That'd been a great name for you, big boy.
What do you think about this outfit he's wearing?
Not much.
This looks like, if Zack Ryder wanted to do some Shawn Michaels cosplay, this is what he'd come up with.
Yeah, it's not, well, it's different. Guy's got a good body. Same old deal. Look at them. They're still wetting their hair. Have you ever wondered why that happens? Every wrestler has to drown their hair with water before a match. And I need an answer for that. And it's the same today. This is back in 1998. So what's the need? Is it improve their look? Is it more easy to manage? Is it just monkey see, monkey do? What the hell's going on here? Baby oil and wet hair. So not big on my list.
No, I'm picking up on that. This is maybe the pitfall of doing a 3-hour show. You know, we had Putski and Riggs. Now we got Chavo in a fucking hard hat, and he's going to wrestle Johnny Swinger. I mean, just because you can, I don't know necessarily that you should. And these are all very capable performers, but they haven't invested a ton of time in their characters. So while the in-ring work is going to be more than adequate, it doesn't really leave the fan at home like, oh man, I got to watch this. It's right. Chavo Guerrero. And I'm not saying that to shit on Chavo, but they're not giving him a lot to do. So there's only so much you can do. Yes, it's great that you're featured on Nitro, but if you've got 2 minutes and there's not really a story, it's pretty hard to get fans invested, is it not?
Yeah, you change the channel because you haven't made an emotional investment in these guys. And so now Charles Robinson, one of the great referees in our business,
Benjamin
trying
Button.
trying to convince Chavo, you can't wrestle with a hard hat on, pal. It's absurd. So now we're stalling for absurdities. And so cooler heads have prevailed here momentarily because reluctantly milked it slow. Here comes the hard hat off. Yeah, these guys didn't have an emotional investment. Chavo had his hair cut, and he's sensitive about his short hair. That's why he brought the scissors to the ring. So now he's trying to lock up with one arm so he can cover his bald spot. It's a cute little story, but it doesn't make me stay in front of my television.
Right.
And Chavo's is very skilled. You know, he's always been very skilled. Johnny Swinger. Whatever happened to Johnny Swinger? That might be a T-shirt.
He's still around. He did some indie stuff and did some shots with ECW, and he's still around.
Good.
Let's talk about what Meltzer wrote in the Observer. I forgot to mention something he said about Steve McMichael when we were doing that segment earlier. He says, Steve McMichael did a taped interview after the reformation of the Four Horsemen. Why do they insist on doing this stupid idea? And more so, if they do, why do they insist on killing it by using McMichael? Flair has been pretty critical of people saying they didn't like Mongo as a horseman. He said, oh man, he fits. But I think what Flair meant was drinking, hanging out, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He fit after the show.
Yes.
He fit after the show, and the goddamn Surrey's back. I don't know what I'm doing here. Then Chavo gets a win, and thank God it's over. Mercifully, it's over. Put me out of my misery. So, but yeah, that was the whole deal. Mongo was fun as hell to hang with,
right,
and to party with. And so now, not only is Chavo going to have a quick win, have a match with his hard hat, now he's got a promo. So I got nothing wrong with Chavo's promos, as we said earlier. He just didn't have any steam. He wasn't hot. They didn't get it. He didn't get a push. God damn it! And so now he's going to cut. He's going to cut hair. He cut at least an inch. My God, changes a kid's lifestyle forever. Look at those little pieces of hair he's cutting off. It means nothing. He could cut that at Super Clips.
Yeah, I mean, he's really saving Johnny $8 right now.
Yep.
But no, this is I don't know, what's old is new again. If only there was a gimmick in wrestling on TV where after a win, a guy gave another guy a haircut.
What's next? A massage? Facial? Next he's going to take his boots off and give him a pedicure. Conrad, do you like pedicures?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think as a fat guy, you got to do a little hoof maintenance every now and again. So I've got a pet egg at the house that I've been rocking during the quarantine. But yeah, once upon a time, I'd go probably every other month and get some of that dead skin off.
Oh man, I'm a every 2 week guy.
Really?
Oh yeah. I have people that do this, and I have the people I use, and they're very attentive, and it makes my feet feel better.
I've never had a manicure though. I'm going to leave that for Bruce. Here's win number 25. We're going to track this one.
Only a few months into it, we knew that this man was for real, but we didn't know how far it would go. Win number 25 in Baltimore. Goldberg continues, and we'll be back with Nitro after this.
It's so fun to think about how there's so many parallels between the WWF and WCW, or just how the timelines sort of sync up. We see a backstage shot here of Goldberg warming up, but the night Goldberg debuted against Hugh Morris in September of '97 is also the night where Cactus Jack debuted in the first Monday Night Raw from Madison Square Garden. That's also the show where Steve Austin would stun Vince McMahon, and backstage before the show started, Vince would tell Brett that, hey, I can't afford your contract. You should probably see if WCW can still get you that old offer. That all happened the exact same night that Goldberg debuted on Nitro from Salt Lake City. It's pretty phenomenal when you think about all that pretty historic stuff happening on the exact same day.
Yeah, very ironic. Very, very ironic to say the very least. Big things happened. Significant things happened. And speaking of significant or not, here comes Disco Inferno.
Is Disco Inferno like one of the more entertaining Twitter follows? Just because, I mean, he is a real life heel. He loves to just stir shit up, and he keeps it stirred pretty regular on Twitter.
He said something the other day. Here comes Alex Wright with his stupid fucking dance. God almighty. The only person I think liked that dance was Jim Barnett. But nonetheless, that's another story. This dancing thing is, everybody's dancing. Goddamn, next Dillinger and Tony will be doing a duet. They'll be dancing. Disco, I got into it, not to get into it. I disagreed with something he said. I can't remember what it was. Irrelevant now. And his response to me, he said, lighten up, JR. I'm a raconteur. So he's a raconteur, Conrad. So there you go. That's the answer to everything. Now they're all dancing. Alex,
Tokyo Magnum.
Yeah. Never heard of him. No, I'm kidding. Didn't hear from him long, but there he is. Then they get a nice beauty shot of the upper deck. That's very impressive.
Oh my gosh, what a visual.
Yeah, the great crowd shot. The more of those, the better. I mean, they're doing a nice job of picking out their shots. Keith Mitchell was in a truck for that stuff and producing the show, did a hell of a job.
Look at the fans. By the way, they're making those arm motions because it's the Public Enemy. Public Enemy, man. Somebody me and you haven't spent a ton of time talking about. Long-time journeyman. Of course, this is Rocco Rock and his tag team partner, Johnny Grunge. They got over like Rover in, I guess the quote unquote bubble of ECW, one of their absolute hottest acts. And it looked like they had opportunities to go to WCW or the WWF. Ultimately, they decided to come here. And then eventually they would pop up very briefly in the WWF. What'd you think of the Public Enemy as an act and the guys behind the act, the guys in real life? We haven't spent a lot of time talking about them.
Well, they worked hard on their gimmick and the gimmick got over as the babyface thing. They're wearing Atlanta Braves jerseys to get the good old hometown pop. I remember talking to both these cats regarding coming to WWE and their deal, we did get them hired because we couldn't agree on money, and they wanted more than we were willing to pay. Simple as that. And so WCW didn't have any issues with that deal, but I didn't have no issues with their act. They remind me of the Nasty Boys in some areas. That they're always a duo, always together. And now Disco and Alex Wright are going to be they're the team, the heel team in this deal. And I'll say this for Disco, he looked good. He's in good shape. And Alex Wright, of course, had his dancing shoes on as usual. And Alex Wright was a good-looking kid. I mean, he was a handsome kid, long, athletic. His dad was a wrestler, but it seemed artificial to me. His act seemed a little bit artificial. And of course, there's nothing artificial about the Public Enemy. They're just coming with right hands. And the old classic tag team thing, they take their opponent back to their corner and then make a tag and a little flapjack there, a little Midnight Express move. So, but they did a good job. They were good guys. They both, you wonder if their lifestyle had been different, if their choices in their private life and personal life have been more judicious, where they would have ended up. But it just didn't work out that way, unfortunately.
We should mention, Meltzer would write, I hope Public Enemy beat Disco Inferno and Alex Wright by DQ in 5 minutes and 4 seconds. Tokyo Magnum came out dancing with Disco and Alex, who actually make a funny mid-level geeky TV tag team. Of course, nobody can have a good match with Public Enemy. It was awful. Although they did do the one spot to get the big pop when Rocco put Magnum through 2 tables. Alex and Disco then came in with garbage cans and attacked Public Enemy for the DQ. Why is that a DQ when PE uses garbage cans in almost every one of their matches? This is another one of those mysteries written by those great fiction writers at the WCW booking committee.
Yeah. Common sense was not their long suit at times. again, so Alex is making his comeback, but he's got to stop and dance. Are you shitting me, Alex? 999, you're German. No, stop it. So, and here's the other thing about this. Why do you need a DQ finish in this tag match?
No,
why can't you have a winner and a loser, Conrad? I don't understand that logic. What are you saving? You're saving Disco and Alex for something bigger?
Right.
Really? So those decisions like that have always puzzled me, not just in WCW. I'm not on a WCW bashing thing, but a lot of promotions do that, because if you're not a good booker or you're not a good agent or whatever you're going to be called, you can't come up with a finish that enhances both teams at the end of the day, then you're not doing your job.
Right.
And so this is a lazy way out of a 5-minute match.
Yeah, it's fun to go back and watch these shows, because I think we as wrestling fans, sometimes we look back on with rose-colored glasses, you know, on the stuff we grew up on, and we say, oh, it'll never be as good as that again or whatever. But some of this Attitude Era stuff, I mean, it really can't be beat. It's phenomenal. But other stuff, well, leaves a little less to be, I mean, people are critical of the current product is my point. And they say, oh, this sucks, that sucks. It's not as good as it used to be. But then you go back and you watch some of this stuff and you're like, I mean, that was okay, but this piece sucked and that part kind of sucked or whatever.
Yeah. It's illogical. Just don't, all promotions, including the one I work for, we got to continue to try to utilize logic.
Right.
And not stretch the imagination to the ridiculous bounds. That's not good writing. That's not good writing at all when you make your audience work that hard to understand what the hell you're doing. And we overthink things sometimes. And so here we got the big spot that Meltzer's talking about. You know, they got the pop, 2 tables, not 1 table. We've already seen 1 table. Now we see 2 tables.
Yeah.
What the hell is next? 3? A sofa? A recliner?
A sofa.
Don't get it. And it's a DQ, like you said. Why? Makes no sense.
Pretty remarkable, you know, what they're putting together here.
Uh-oh. Those goddamn trash cans can kill people. Do not try this at home, especially when you use a trash can, hit somebody in the shoulder. That could tear out a labrum. So here we are. We have the DQ. The babyface make another comeback, and it all means nothing. Nothing. And everybody's got to keep dancing. There's Disco's dancing. Alex is dancing. God almighty.
We should mention, Juventud Guerrera was married, this past week, which is why he's not here, but Bret Hart's not here for one of the biggest shows of the year, because he had agreed to, serve as a celebrity race starter for an auto race in Toronto. So he's got a little PR gig, but it's happening on the biggest Nitro ever. To me, that just feels like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. I would want to cart Bret Hart out in front of my biggest audience, my biggest gate, right?
I'm sure they did. Conrad. But if he already had a commitment that they weren't aware of or didn't investigate, or to find out, hey, Bret, are you cool for this Monday night? Then shame on the administration. They may not have known. They may not have asked. Hell, I don't know. But if a guy's got a commitment, and Bret's very loyal to his community and his country, so and Bret's good about keeping his word. He committed to other people because he didn't have a booking at that time. And now here comes the triumphant. This is your Judy Bagwell in a pole match preference or preamble or whatever.
You know, I'll tell you, Buff Bagwell's going to have one of the best promos of his career here in just a moment. And it is a big reaction. You know, he is a hometown Atlanta boy, and he's getting quite the reception. This is really a good promo. Let's track it here from Buff.
Judy, good to see you, my dear. Welcome, a vast television audience watching on. It wasn't that long ago, Mark Bagwell, when we were all holding our breath. I talked to the doctors. For those of you that know about the spinal column, a C7 and a C4 fracture. It could have meant your life. As a matter of fact, if I recall, you came very close to dying, actually, a couple of times in intensive care.
Gene, do you have any idea how it feels to come back into your own home city and to be able to say the words, "I love Atlanta"? Gene, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. There's no way I can tell you how it feels to be laying on your back and not knowing whether or not you're ever going to be able to come out in front of these great fans ever again.
You could have been paralyzed by that tragic accident. Very close.
Gene, I almost lost my life twice. There's no way to tell you how that feels. Gene, everybody across the nation kept in such touch with me. I cannot tell you how it feels to know that these people love me just as much as I love them. And God knows I love each and every fan out there. Listen
Every
to
one
that.
of them. Every damn one of them, Conrad.
Are you kidding me?
You see the signs out here? Buff, we miss you. Buff will be back. You have got a lot of support in this house tonight. You've got a lot of support everywhere in America, everywhere in the world.
Well, Scott Steiner last week came out, and he wanted to bring me out as his co-star. You know, since this injury, Gene, I tell you, I've had a second look at life. As you can see, I'm not doing too good right now, but just to be able to bring a fork to my mouth is something I cannot believe I can do. Because the feeling I had in that ring, I was never going to be able to move again from the neck down. So Scotty's got to go on with his life, and I got to go on with mine. And it starts with coming out in Atlanta and telling everybody out here how much Buff Daddy loves them.
What about this great lady who right now has her right hand on your shoulder? I know, Mark, that your mother, Judy, has been, along with all of your family members, by your side through this entire ordeal.
You know what, Gene? If I had the entire 3 hours of this Nitro tonight to tell you what this lady behind me means to me, we would run over and cost Ted Turner millions of dollars. There's no way I could ever explain to everybody out there how much I love this lady behind me, Judy Bagwell.
Well, Mark, I don't know what to make of that episode last week between Scott Steiner and, of course, Eric Bischoff. They said they had some kind of a surprise coming up. Were you the surprise that Scott Steiner has in the back of his mind?
Well, I'm the surprise that he thought I was going to be, but like I told you, Gene, I'm just thankful to be eating and breathing. Scott Steiner's got his life, and I've got mine. And I'll tell you what, Gene, I'm just happy to be out here again, able to come out and say thanks to the fans and thanks to this wonderful lady behind me.
All right, I think, Atlanta, we should give it up for a great competitor, a man that has been through phenomenal adversity. Yes.
There's one more thing I want to say, Gene, and it's something you may have heard before, but I'm Buff, and I'm still the stuff.
How about that? Man alive. Judy, I thank you very much. You are a sweetheart. All right.
I mean,
How good is Okerlund? How good is Okerlund? He made that whole interview, and I know you liked the Bagwell interview, and it was good. It was repetitive at times, but nonetheless, it was heartfelt, and he didn't have a script, it didn't seem like. But Okerlund made that interview. He got the crowd engaged. He incorporated all the points that were outlined. So as we look now at Goldberg's 50th consecutive victory.
I like this element of here was the first one, here was the 25th, here was the 50th. I mean, we're giving you sort of the big win milestones and showing some highlights of him getting win after win, all the same way. Spear, jackhammer, that's all she wrote.
Yeah, and you don't need any more than that. Earlier I talked about Bill's Limden moveset. That's not a negative.
No.
You know, it's not a negative at all. I think that a lot of young wrestlers believe that the more things I can do, period, the better off my game will be. And it should be the more things I can do really, really well, the better off my game will be. Not to be a copycat or to do something you've already seen on the show, i.e. we've already seen the two table things here. That's just not good management in that respect. But Goldberg's moveset worked like a champion. Because he stayed in his role. I tell people all the time, don't do things if you can't do something really well, just don't do them. And the greatest example of that is some people throwing punches, especially if they're leg slappers. and throwing punches and they slap their leg. Now, how big a pop does it make when skin hits skin? Are you shitting me? We're not going to. We think our fans are so stupid that we're going to buy it. It's just weak. It's really weak. And they'll come back now with another on camera. Look at there, Eric's or Heenan's there.
Yeah. So Larry Zbyszko's out. Heenan is in. I absolutely loved Heenan on Nitro. I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, he wasn't at his best. His best stuff was in the WWF," and I can't really argue that. But I think somebody once made the analogy that, hey, any pizza is good pizza. Well, I don't know that that's always the case, but a little Bobby Heenan is better than no Bobby Heenan.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Hey, I've been categorized in that same vein of conversation. Well, JR's best days are in WWE. And people have the right to their opinion, and I do appreciate them liking my work, but it doesn't mean we still can't do our job today. And I'm not going to be against. I'm not an ageism guy. That's just not right. It's not fair. Hell, Vin Scully announced Dodger games until he was 82.
Right.
I don't plan on working for Tony Khan until I'm 82. I hope to be alive at 82, but nonetheless, the old dogs can still hunt sometimes, folks. They really can. Look at Shivani there, young Tony.
Still got that chair jacked up higher than everybody.
Yeah, he looks like Andre.
And I'm with you. I wish that Mike Tenay would come back and do some stuff with wrestling. I suspect that he's just, I don't know, maybe a little burnout or disappointed or disillusioned with wrestling after the way his run with Impact came to an end.
Could be. Yeah. Not real respectful from what I remember. I always liked Mike. All the times I was going to Vegas to do boxing for CBS and things. Mike and I would go to lunch occasionally, and always really enjoyed Mike. He's a really smart guy. He's the hell of he knows so much about sports betting, the sports book world. So I always liked Mike a lot. And here comes Scott Hall.
Yeah, Scott Hall is going to be taking on Goldberg here, and remember the stakes. He's got to get through Scott Hall. If Scott Hall ends the streak and Scott Hall wins, no title shot, no main event against Hulk Hogan.
Toothpick in hand, or it was also a toothpick in mouth. He flipped at the cameraman. So Scott's coming out milking the babyface entrance. Some old promoters and some old bookers would soil the sheets if they saw that. But he was a very charismatic guy, the strut and the machismo. McMahon learned that word, and goddamn, he wore it out. But Razor. Machismo. Okay, nobody else can use machismo. But it was good to see Scott back there at that point in time. He needed it, and they needed him. But sometimes guys that have issues going back on the road and getting back in their group, it's kind of like ignoring social distancing. It's not a smart thing to do. And for some guys that have issues like Scott has had in his lifetime, getting back with guys that perpetuate that is not a great thing. I think that when Scott left WWE the last time, that I felt like that we did the right thing. I told him that you being on the road is not a good thing for you, and we need to watch out for you. So it's just not going to work. So the temptations are too great. But nobody's got a better wrestling mind than Scott Hall. I'm really surprised, and it's sad, Conrad, because his previous life, his life experiences, has not been kind to him in that regard. Because there's no reason that Scott Hall should not be involved in somebody's creative. There's really no reason. So now here comes Goldberg. It's the big pop, all the pyro. Looks great too, right? No ring jacket, no T-shirt. Got his MMA gloves on, and looking really good. Billy's a good guy. We have the same agent, the erstwhile Barry Bloom. So I like Bill. And man, has he milked it at the end of his run? Has he got some paydays out of that deal? Holy,
yeah, you think?
Oh, good for him.
Has there ever been a guy, and I'm not saying this to be negative because everybody listening to this knows I hate Bill Goldberg, but has there ever been a guy who made more money learning fewer moves? And I'm not saying that to be dismissive. I'm saying it's fucking pretty smart. I mean, I remember talking to, an old timer once upon a time, and we talked about another performer, and he said, yeah, some bitch knows 4,000 moves and ain't one of them over. And it just tickled me. Like on some level, it's not how many moves you can do. It's how many of them can you get over that fans will pay to see. And I understand that. And so Goldberg, goddamn, he made a lot of money learning how to do 5 moves, 6
Yeah,
moves.
something like that. But it works. It worked. And he got over with those moves. He got over running his offense. You know, I remember back in the old days, using a football analogy, that when teams ran the wishbone, they only had about like 4 plays. But if you execute your plan, it worked. So always in the early going, you know, everybody's going to put over Goldberg's power and his strength. And these guys, Goldberg's being led in this match, you're watching, folks, by Scott Hall. Scott Hall is talking. He's communicating in a variety of ways with Goldberg. Slow down, not yet, this type of things. And so it's really important for that. And then of course Goldberg, he learned a back heel trip. And Scott's a great opponent for Goldberg here. It's much like placing Diamond Dallas Page in that crazy tag team match with the basketball players, Malone and Rodman with Hulk. He could keep the rudder in the water. And Scott Hall could always keep the rudder in the water for a greener, less skilled talent, like a Bill Goldberg, because don't make any mistake, Scott was there to put Goldberg over. And that's what great pros do. It's not a disgrace to lose a pro wrestling match, for God's sakes. Now that move right there, where the whip to the ropes was totally out of step, out of rhythm, and because those ring ropes are so damn stiff, Hall could have broken his ribs right there, just inadvertently, with Goldberg. So that's but again, now Scott's making sure he slows down. Got his eyes are wide open, and he's communicating with Goldberg. They're having the wrestler discussion right now.
Man, this crowd is so ready. Just a body slam and they erupt.
Well, it's the old thing, man. We talked about it a lot here. When you get over, the least things you do seemingly work. And Goldberg's look, his expression, his eyes, his body English, the whole 9 yards, certainly just, you know, he was just over it. People could not wait to see what he was going to do. They couldn't wait, Conrad, to see him win.
Yeah.
People love winners. You know, you live in a state where it's all about winning football games.
Yep.
Whether you're Tide or Auburn or whatever. It's all about wins. And the fan base loves their teams because they win. It's human nature. And so that was the story here with this deal. And I really, watching this match, it's a virtuoso performance by Scott Hall on how he's structuring this match with Goldberg, who kicks out at 1, by the way. Another smart move by Bill. And Scott may say kick out at 1. Who knows? But it's protecting your golden goose. As Heenan says, when the streak ended, it took a damper to the aura off of Goldberg a little bit. And maybe it's because of the way he lost or whatever. I don't know. But nonetheless, Hall's doing a great job in this match with scoring basic stuff. Hitting Goldberg in the face so Bill can sell. He can sell the punches. It's not elaborate. It's not Hurricane Ranas, as you mentioned earlier. It's just basic wrestling. And now Goldberg's up with those massive traps look like Road Warrior Hawk. And the facial expressions say, I'm pissed off. Hip lock takeover and a kind of an MMA throw, judo throw, quite frankly. And then you see an arm drag. Now Goldberg thinks he's Ricky Steamboat. Those arm drags are not real smooth, but they look good. He just overpowered Hall, and that's pretty damn cool. So now Hall going to try to get some more time in this match, what's been called for. He leaves, and Hall's looking for help.
And here he comes. I mean, when you need help, you need Ed Leslie. And there's Mike Jones, and a couple chair shots from DDP and Karl Malone, and down they go. And they're doing a great job of giving the rub to everybody who needs it tonight. Are they not? Like, Goldberg's the hot act. Well, who can we brush up against them tonight? Send Karl Malone out there, sell that pay-per-view that happens in 6 days.
Right. A good booking in that regard.
Absolutely.
And again, Goldberg is in deep water here time-wise. This is not his traditional under 5-minute enhanced squash match. Yeah, he's being taken to a little bit deeper in the water, a little bit more time, and he could not have done that, speaking of Goldberg, with someone with a lesser skill set than Scott Hall. Goldberg,
look at the crowd, man.
Yeah, they're going crazy. They know they can't wait.
Watch out from behind!
I smell 107, gentlemen.
I smell jackhammer. Yeah, and I think we all smell Hollywood Hogan.
If you're close to him, you do.
Up and down. 1, 2, 3.
Come on, Hollywood. The man is knocking at your door.
And that door is coming up later in this program.
It's going to come right off the hinges, Tony. Right.
Man, what a moment. The crowd is electric. I mean, just watching that with the sound on just now, Jim, gave me goosebumps. Look at the fans. They're going nuts.
Yeah, you didn't get that kind of emotion at a Falcons game. I can tell you, he really didn't, because I broadcast Falcon games. In that first year, '92, when the dome opened, you got some pop, but nonetheless, they weren't used to it there in Atlanta with especially with this kind of event, obviously. Yeah, Goldberg so strongly over, and that run really has lasted him
forever,
his entire career,
decades. I mean, really think about that. He started to pick up steam, sure, in 1998, but let's go back to September of 97. And, it goes through, December of this year, 98, with the streak. And that run, 15 months, that's carried him for decades. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
Yeah. And so we go back and talk again about, was the 107 or 100, whatever the streak was it good booking? Well, obviously it was good booking, because that's what got Goldberg over, and he stayed over. That's why he got those massive paydays for his matches in Saudi and places like that, his matches with Brock Lesnar. The fact that Lesnar put him over was pretty damned amazing in that regard. Nobody saw that coming. I sure did. So this streak got Goldberg over, and he has stayed over since. He's still an attraction. If WWE chooses to use him again, which I don't know why they wouldn't, then he would be, he's going to still be over. And the Nitro girls have yet changed into another outfit, and dancing in front of Heenan, Shivani, and Tenay.
Tony Schiavone is in trouble right now at this very moment. He's not thinking about Lois, and he's in trouble.
But remember, Conrad, Lois rules.
Yes, she does.
Hey, I'm really been having fun with Tony and these ride-along things we do.
Oh yeah, over at adfreeshows.com, where we hook up a couple of cameras and just film you guys making a road trip.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun. It's, I appreciate folks tuning in for that. It's a fun experience, and there's no script. We have no idea what we're talking about. Hell, it may be, what's a better burger, Whataburger or whatever. You know what I mean? So here comes another filler, talented filler.
One of my favorites from the era, without question. Such good stuff here. He's going to have a match with Juventud, fresh off his marriage here. We should mention too that great friend of the show, Mark Madden, was coming back to WCW. He's going to be doing play-by-play when the company tries like an internet pay-per-view, but it's just audio. So this is before you could watch and stream video, but you could stream audio, and they're going to do that at the Forum out in Los Angeles, just a handful of days after this, Friday night before the big pay-per-view. So that's kind of, an interesting concept, pay per listen, if you will, for a big show.
Well, it kind of reminds us what we do.
Yeah.
It's selling audio, providing audio. Well, the Juventud has what a babyface look he has. And how many times do you think these cats have wrestled each other?
A million.
Yeah. So it starts off with a lot of spots. You're going to see a lot of spots in this. Not a lot of holes, not a lot of submission attempts. Maybe not even enough false finishes. I don't know. Seems like in today's world, we go to the false finishes. There's one there. But we seem to, if guys think that 1 or 2 false finishes is okay, then 10 must be great. And it isn't.
We should mention when the ratings come out, because that's what it's all about. We've been talking about that since the start of the show. WCW is going to capture 7 of the 8 head-to-head quarters. As a reminder, Nitro's 3 hours. We get an hour head start on Raw. Raw's only 2 hours. But WCW captures 7 of the 8 head-to-head quarters to earn a 4.93 rating and an 8.07 share. Raw gets a 4.0 rating. We should mention the peak rating on Raw, believe it or not, is a 4.8, and it happens for Val Venus versus Dustin Runnels. And of course, that same DX spoof on the Nation. But that has a 5.3 on Nitro head to head. So they're doing the Wolfpack in the house party segment there. But the big segment, of course, as you might imagine, is the main event with Hulk Hogan and Goldberg. And it does become the highest rated, most watched wrestling match in cable television history.
To that point.
Yeah. Up to that point. Yeah. Well, it's the first one to reach 5 million homes. It drew 5,054,000 homes, which Meltzer would say in this era was more than 7 million total viewers. That match gets a 6.91 rating and an 11.8 share, which broke the all-time record, which was set back when Hogan beat Randy Savage, in April. And the combined audience of both shows, both Raw and SmackDown, was another all-time peak, 7,873,000 fans. That's unbelievable. 7.8 million.
Yes, that's product's hot. Like we said earlier, it's never a bad day when our business is hot, no matter what banner they are competing under.
Right.
Which is why I think all fans, if you're real fans, should just support the genre in general. We got enough detractors. We don't know people within our own family denigrating a brand or a spot or a talent or whatever. These guys are they're so good. It reminds me of a Flair Steamboat match. It was almost seamless.
Yeah.
And they just worked together so much. It was just almost seamless there. And of course, you can't have a match with Psychosis and these guys, and here comes some company.
Yeah, unfortunately,
without going to the top rope. Go ahead.
The Flock is going to beat them up and just ruin the finish of the match. Oh man, what a 450. Unbelievable.
And no DQ. It was actually a pin.
Yeah.
So Juventud comes back from his shortened honeymoon, and just in time to get gang assaulted here by the Flock. So we got to get some heat back on the heels. I don't know. Again, obligatory booking. Well, get some heat back. No, you didn't get any heat back. There's nothing there. People enjoyed the match. So we go to another Goldberg. Now we're at his 75th win in a row.
And I think this is when he wins the U.S. title from Raven. Let's track it.
In the process, goes to 75-0 as he disposed of Raven with his patented spear, followed by the jackhammer.
And it's ironic, Tony. He nails him on the stop sign.
He certainly did. And tonight, he'll try to make it 107. If he does, he'll become world champ tonight.
Oh, Tony's all jacked up on Diet Mountain Dew, wasn't he? God bless him. And now they're on camera again. Jerry Lawler would have loved this.
He loves the on cameras.
Well, hell yeah. We all did. First thing the king would look at and look at the sheets. Well, do you know we only had 2 on cameras? No, I didn't know that. I hadn't looked at it yet. Of course, yeah. He's smart. The more on camera time you get, the better your opportunity is to quote unquote get over, even for an announcer. Heenan's so goddamn good. He can sit there and not say anything, and it works. Seriously, facials, body English, the greatest multi-tool talent I've ever worked with in my career. Wrestling, managing, broadcasting, hosting, whatever. It was Bobby Heenan at the top, and everybody else is playing for second.
Serious business. If Bobby Heenan was still around today and he had a podcast, would you and I even have a chance? It feels like he'd have every advertiser under the sun, and we're just getting leftovers.
Well, I know one thing: he'd be working with you.
Oh, that'd be cool.
You're too damn smart to let that thing pass you by. But yeah, it'd be great. Uncensored Bobby Heenan was amazing. You know, another deal just reminded me. We're seeing another video here. The other thing that is Heenan we had those chocolate cake runs, right?
Oh, right.
And so now we got people. I signed about 200 books yesterday, as we're recording this, that you can still get the personalized autograph at jrsbbq.com. Happy to do it. Love your business and thank you. But a lot of people are wanting either the push I mentioned earlier, or what I just talked about, what was your talk? I lost my train of thought there.
Oh, you're signing the books, the push and the chocolate cake are the two most requested.
Chocolate cake is a big one. So, it's like, 2 Sam or 2 DDP. Let's have some chocolate cake or something along those lines. A lot of that chocolate cake thing's kind of caught on. DDP getting back on TV. This is second or third time he's been on television tonight. They're promoting the pay-per-view. I get it. He's in the main event. I understand that as well. And the pay-per-view's in 6 days. It's just, they're doing everything they can. You notice these images, these videos are not of Carl Malone wrestling, because there's no one exposing.
Right.
There's chairs and things that he can execute and do. But not too much wrestling. He's body slamming Hogan, but things that Carl could do, they highlighted. So that was smart there to not expose him for the lack of skills that he would naturally have, because he's a basketball player, full-time basketball player.
It's pretty crazy to think they put all this together. I mean, right on the heels of Jordan and the Bulls' historic run. But I mean, in the finals, it's not just Jordan and the Bulls. It's Karl Malone and John Stockton and the Utah Jazz, and they're against each other. And now they're going to be in the ring against each other live on pay-per-view. It's pretty remarkable. And talk about a throwback. Here comes a feel good. Let me up. Hacksaw Jim Duggan with the 2x4 and, the red, white, and blue over his shoulder. I don't know, man. It didn't feel like he ever really fit in WCW to me. He'll always be a WWF act to me. And I know you grew up with him working in Texas with Bill Watts, but the Hulk Hogan super friends of the WWF is the way I'll always remember Hulk Hogan. Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Duggan got categorized or pigeonholed as a comedy guy.
Right.
Way too early in his career. If you were in my shoes and had the privilege of living through the era where Jim Duggan was wrestling Ted DiBiase in Mid-South or Buzz Sawyer, guys like that, you would have saw a whole different deal. He was like he was like Bruiser Brody 2.0. He was a brawler, fighter, all that stuff. As he's in a big fight here, no pun intended, with Big Show, who was the Giant, creatively named. And you notice the size of the Giant. He's probably maybe 400, 350, something like. He looks great.
Yeah, he looks good here.
So, and he's got a lot of hair. He wishes he had that today. So, but Duggan, these kicks are horrible. There's an Andre spot. Duggan in the corner, big ass bump, a vertical ass bump, Conrad, much like your sex life. The vertical ass bump.
Oh, that's my finishing move. You've been talking to people.
And Duggan was, he was just a great brawler, fighter. You believed in him. His promos are real. And then all of a sudden he became this, he was booked to be a more lighthearted, like you said earlier, let me up guy. And Hello Jim still, when the virus is not around, he still travels and does his comedy shows, his Q&As, and he's quite the entrepreneur.
I think guys from that era, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, Jake the Snake Roberts. Those guys were the golden era. And there's a lot of fans my age, 35, 40 years old, who grew up in that era. And anytime those guys go do anything, they're going to turn up for them. I mean, I know that firsthand from doing, StarCast and promoting my first conventions and things for the first time. Man, Million Dollar Man had as many pre-sales as a lot of other quote unquote headliners. Not to say that all of these guys once upon a time weren't working main events. I'm just saying you would think, hey, whatever's the new latest and greatest, that's going to be the big draw. No, $1 Million Man, people line up to see him and Jimmy Hart and so many others from that era. It just had it made such an impression. On
anytime somebody could take us back to their youth, our youth.
Yeah.
It makes us feel good.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about nostalgic that makes us feel good. That's why a lot of networks that are airing repeats of football games that were classic games, national championship, Alabama, Clemson rivalry, things like that, are still of interest because the emotional investment in the teams and all that stuff. So now we got another post-match interview. So post-match interviews, we've come to realize on this 3-hour show are not rare. Everybody seems to get one. At least the Giant, aka the Big Show, Paul White, was he got a win. He didn't get, it wasn't a disqualification or something weak, anemic finishes don't work in my world. But this big son of a bitch he had always had great charisma. Look at him, he looks right in the camera, look at his promo. Looks like he's been up for like 3 days. Hey, when a Giant has bags under their eyes, them son of bitches are Toomies.
That's funny.
They're expensive and they're big.
How about Kevin Green, Carolina Panther at the time, Hall of Famer, to be sure, running in, and he's got something for the Giant, wearing his white shorts and his white shoes. Let's track it.
Oh. He threw him a bomb that time, didn't he? Intensity.
So he comes in, spits on the Giant, ducks him, and then clotheslines him out. Pretty simplistic deal for a mainstream celebrity, but he's a bona fide NFL superstar, and here he is on Nitro mixing it up with the Giant.
Yeah, you wouldn't want him to do anything more, Conrad.
Right.
The one clothesline, nice pop. The Giant landed on his feet after going over the top rope. And there's Karl Malone doing the diamond cutter signal. It's pretty cool. There's the late Jim Neidhart coming in. I forgot all these guys were there. Man, they had a huge roster, did they not?
Oh, huge. Well, I mean, you got to remember, not only do they have Nitro, which is now just not 2 hours, it's 3, but they've also got a 2-hour live Thunder, and they've also got the weekend syndicated shows and house shows. So yeah, there is a ton of guys on this roster. It's probably way deeper than any wrestling company before.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Maybe not now. I mean, a few months ago, the WWE roster was probably the all-time high. Don't you imagine, between all the kids in developmental and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Until the furloughs and the cutbacks and so forth. So now we have, imagine this, more TV time for Malone and DDP.
This is their 58th segment here on the show.
Yeah. And Malone's walking out there like he knows what he's doing. God bless him. So it's DDP and Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Yeah. Meltzer would write, it's amazing how all of WCW's biggest and baddest wrestlers get made out to be fools in their own sports by guys from other sports. He's referencing the Kevin Green Giant bit. And I get sometimes, it's Meltzer's role to be critical of things. I get that. But I thought that Kevin Green Giant thing was well done. I mean, it's not like he buried him. He hit him with a fucking clothesline.
Yeah. It's exactly what, like I said earlier, it's exactly what Kevin Green should have done in that regard. If you're going to get Kevin Green a spot and you got plans for him down the road, Kevin Green was a better in-ring performer in my view than was Steve McMichael. Again, you get a great athlete that's highly motivated, that's going to suck the old proverbial hind teat, as we said. And so now Jim the Anvil Neidhart is nailing DDP with some very snug right hands, meaning that the Anvil may be doing the honors tonight.
It's pretty crazy to think when we look in the ring that Jim Neidhart nor our referee are still with us.
Yeah.
Both gone way, way too soon.
Ryan Hildebrand was a hell of a referee. I did a lot of work for him in
Smoky Mountain.
Smoky Mountain. Yeah, I'm sorry. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. What a nice kid. Cancer got him. Could beat that one.
One of the lifelong friends of Jim Cornette, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people. Brian was a very popular guy. People loved him. And he just turned his back to say something to Malone while Anvil took advantage, seeing the referee, had his head up, and struck with a low blow. But, of course, we all know that DDP's got balls of steel. He may be wearing a cup, folks. But nonetheless, he just got grabbed by his mullet. We saw a lot of mullets tonight here, Conrad. Mullets and wet hair. I haven't seen any leg slaps. Have you?
No. I mean, leg slaps became a thing with the super kick back in the day, probably with, Chris Adams, do you think?
Maybe Chris Adams. Shawn Michaels would do it.
Yeah.
But he'd do it once. He didn't do it on this, this thing or the other. So Neidhart gets a full Nelson, DDP with a reverse mule kick to the cods.
And the diamond cutter, the most over move in wrestling at this point.
And it shockingly resembles the stunner. Goldberg shockingly resembles Stone Cold. Just saying. So now Malone does what he does best, celebrates.
I think for what it's worth,
they're going to go back through the crowd like they did the first time.
I like that touch.
Second, I like it too, Conrad, but how many times do you like it?
Right.
It's, now we've got 100.
Here we go. Let's track it.
And the fans were going wild. Look at this against Conan of the Wolfpack with Hennigan rooted ringside. He picked him up, disposed of him in Baltimore. Goldberg at 100 as we inch closer, creep closer, step closer to Goldberg's world title match against the champ Hollywood Hogan here tonight.
I got to tell you, I like the decision to include the footage of his win at Great American Bash against Conan, because Conan was a bigger star than some of the other guys that they had featured. I mean, I know he beat Raven for the U.S. title, but being in that Wolfpack group, which is coming out now, I mean, this is the most over group. This is the group that's selling all the merch. Of course, it's Kevin Nash, it's Conan, or K-Dog as they called him, Lex Luger, and what I've always affectionately referred to as Tomato Face Sting. But Meltzer would even comment, Wolfpack did another useless interview. Nash did his catchphrase. Conan did his. Luger and Sting beat Sick Boy and Kidman in 29 seconds when Lex would rack Sick Boy and Sting death dropped Kidman, and they all went home. It truly is something to see how the guys who are selling 55% of all merchandise in the company have no storyline and get almost no television time. It really is crazy to think about that they're this over and they're not really figured in a major way for the pay-per-view coming up or even on this show. It's just like a throwaway segment. So maybe
the logo, Conrad, the logo's over. Yeah. NWO, the gimmick is over. That's what's over. Because now if we can see here, this is completely watered down. And I say that respectfully to all the guys in the ring, but come on, the NWO, the gimmick got over, and the more people that was booked into the gimmick, the NWO, the less over it became.
Right.
And they're doing cool promos. Again, it's reinventing the wheel in essence. Because they're doing babyface promos that are like the Conan now doing. It's a fan interactive thing. That's not a heel promo. And here comes Billy Kidman, who I always referred to as the greatest overachiever in wrestling, because he married Tori Wilson.
You know what? I just realized Sick Boy with his hair like this, he looks like Adam Cole's big brother.
Yeah, he does. Sick Boy,
baby.
Adam Cole's a good kid. I had a lot of time for him. Great worker. We had our big Memorial Day party in Jacksonville, and sometimes when he's off, he'll come join his wife, which is cool. He's always welcome in our group, and it's just a pleasure to be around. And so is she. She's playing her role very well. She's getting better and better. You see her improving her game.
By the way, isn't it funny when a couple of photos surfaced from that party when fans were just, oh, Adam Cole's at an AEW event. It means he's jumping ship. Why would he do that? And it's like, guys, he's with one of their featured performers in real life. Like that's his life partner. Why in the world would you? It's just crazy to me.
Right. I agree. It's just it's the never ending thirst for something new to talk about, something new on the horizon. So Luger does the one thing he did pretty well, the torture rack.
Look at the crowd though. I mean, listen, it's easy for us to say, man, there's nothing to this. It's watered down. It sucks. It was only 29 seconds, but holy shit, silly as it may have been, crowd's into it.
Yeah. But here's the thing. They're heels. They're cast to be villains, and villains don't go out of their way to solicit cheers. If you like somebody and you're cheering for them, then how are they villains? Now there's another Goldberg video.
Yeah. This time we're highlighting his win over Scott Hall from earlier tonight, just to show you, hey, here's 1, 25, 50, 75, 100. And now here's his most recent one that solidifies that he gets a title shot tonight against Scott Hall.
I've noticed that Goldberg from one to this one that we're seeing here now, he changed his body English. He's improved his facial expressions. He's exuding more charisma. He's more relaxed, is young William Goldberg, the former Georgia Bulldog defensive tackle.
How was he to deal with in the WWF? I mean, I'm probably not supposed to talk about current stuff, but Bruce tells me
never an issue for me.
Bruce tells me that it's like dealing with two Goldbergs, the guy he dealt with once upon a time in the WWF versus his most recent run when Bruce was up there. Delight just couldn't have been better. One of the easiest guys ever. But back in the day, I don't think Bruce really felt that, but you had a different opinion.
I knew him better. I knew him better than Bruce. Bruce had a business relationship with Goldberg, and Goldberg was cautious. He wasn't worldly as far as the pro wrestling world is concerned. He wasn't worldly. So therefore, like a lot of guys, you think Stone Cold trusted people? Are you kidding?
Right.
But he got to know everybody. And so then Steve became easier to deal with. By and large, there are exceptions to the rule. We all have our bad days. But no, I had a personal relationship with Goldberg, still do. But it's just a matter of communication. Communication. And if you understood the lay of the land, or you didn't know who was what and all this, what was going on, you can understand the apprehension. And also the fact that a lot of guys are in his head. They love to screw with the young guys that don't have their balance yet, don't have their fundamentals down as far as locker room etiquette or interaction with your teammates in this world. So I can understand Bruce's point, but I had an entirely different relationship with Goldberg from, again, Tulsa Edison, all the way up. I talked to him every day at a Falcon practice when I was doing work for the Falcons and WCW. So, we were buddies. And so I had no issues with him. And he would talk to me about stuff like that. Sometimes he just needed to understand. And that takes patience from administrators and others. And I always had patience for Bill. Well, that walk to the ring it's like a big fight. It's like a football team coming down the tunnel.
I like this look. I mean, it has a big fight feel.
Yeah, I agree. It's about time, right?
Yes, it is. It is. Let's track it here.
To a cranking in here tonight.
And Tony, if Hogan is to defeat this man, you know what the NWO is going to be like then, with Hogan and Bischoff in charge.
There he is.
And here comes the eruption.
Bigger than before. Told you.
How smart is he?
Great
bigger
stuff.
Than before. It should not be bigger than before because it's the second time we've seen him in the same environment, getting introduced for a match. But Heenan wanted to protect Goldberg by saying this pop is bigger than before. And so most of us would buy that. It's good enough for me.
Into WCW, and he represents every wrestler who wanted just to walk in here and become a world champ. That's what he
Goldberg and
represents.
selling that pyro is like going on a car trip with my buddy Rob Van Dam. It's always 420 somewhere.
My goodness. The idea of you hotboxing with Rob Van Dam down the highway cracks me up.
Well, I don't remember ever doing that, but I was going for comedy. But nonetheless, it could happen.
Sure.
It's not too late. Well, Charles Robinson with his Ric Flair hair, God bless him, little rascal. He's assigned this important contest before 41,000. We get the challenger to the ring. We take a commercial break because ain't nobody going nowhere.
Yeah, nobody's going to miss this, man. Main event coming up. Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Let's track a little bit of this.
Fans, and obviously, and the two athletes, there's a measure of uncertainty, butterflies, and I know because we have them up here.
Oh, do we ever?
You can just, you've been able to feel the excitement, the electricity, the intensity of the night.
And look at this man.
Hogan walked out in segment one.
Goldberg's box.
Walked out in segment one.
What do you think of this show so far, Jim? It's your first time seeing Nitro, one of the biggest Nitros ever. What do you think?
It's a fun show to watch for me for the first time. I will never watch it again.
Sure.
It's 3 hours long. That's with commercials involved in a 3-hour show. It's a different deal, folks, to say, well, those pay-per-views are 3 hours. They don't have commercials. You can flow. And when you got commercials, you got to stop and start and stop and start. So 3 hours is too long for me. I don't have the attention span any longer. I don't know if I ever did. But they've done a hell of a job building up to this match by the videos, the interviews, the promo, all the stuff. So it's been nicely done. It's just too much. And if you gave me a quiz on what we saw earlier in something like Juventud and so forth, I'd be challenged to remember it because none of that stuff, it had no meaning. They weren't over. It's just filler. It's filler to get us here where we are right now. I'll say this, Hogan's taking it seriously.
Yes, he is.
He's moving around like a champion. He's preparing for battle. I appreciate that. And of course, Goldberg is he's an animal. He's a beast looking for something to eat. A carnivore personified.
Meltzer would write, can be debated whether at this stage of the game, putting the title on Goldberg was premature and a panicked reaction to being drubbed in the ratings the previous week. What can't be debated is that the lesson learned from the flop that was Sting was learned from. And once the decision was made to do it, that this is the right time and it was done right. The 31-year-old Goldberg, less than 10 months after making his televised debut last September 22nd in Salt Lake City, was given the WCW title by Hulk Hogan before the largest crowd in the history of the company, the fourth largest crowd for pro wrestling ever in the U.S. on July 6th at the Georgia Dome, and garnering without question one of the biggest pops in the history of the business. WCW built the television around Goldberg from start to finish, showing clips of him warming up throughout the show. And man, he's just really sort of high-fiving the way it turned out, but maybe perhaps wondering, should they have left it for pay-per-view? If this were your company, you know, knowing that you did Starrcade the prior year and did 7 million on pay-per-view, there's probably no reason to think you couldn't do something close to that with this match, but instead we're doing it on TV. If it were you and you were Eric Bischoff and you're working for Turner, would you have campaigned to save this for a pay-per-view, or is this the right time, right place?
I would have campaigned for the pay-per-view, but not vociferously. Yeah, I noticed on the lockup a while ago, Hogan right now is still talking to Goldberg.
Yeah.
Hogan is talking to Goldberg this entire match, reminiscent of what we saw earlier from the ring generalship of Scott Hall. They're taking care of Goldberg, and of course, that's a cool thing, a smart thing. Cheers to Hogan for that. But he's leading the way. He's leading the dance. And quite frankly, it's not unusual that the heel lead a match. That's kind of the traditional thing. That's what made Flair so great. He called his own plays. He didn't have somebody say, okay, headlock me, drop down, leapfrog, drop kick, nothing. That was his deal. He called the plays. That's what helped make Rick great. But now Goldberg is using his strength and the old proverbial Greco-Roman knuckle lock, Conrad.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
The bottom line is I'll answer your question. I'd lobby for pay-per-view, not that hard, knowing that the upper management wanted ratings. And they got ratings on the show. They got a huge audience. Success. Bischoff and company win in that regard. They got what the people writing their checks wanted. Ratings. Eyeballs. And I don't think it was too early for the title on Goldberg. My God, he'd won 100-something matches in a row. And yes, it would have worked on pay-per-view. Nobody's going to debate that point. But when you work for a television company that makes its living on ratings, that's what you do. The only thing negative I saw there with Hogan was that the back rake, which is, I think, wasted motion. And now he's using his weight belt to whip the hell out of. He's whipping Goldberg, Conrad, like a goddamn government mule. And now Goldberg has taken the weapon away, the weight belt, and instead of using it on Hogan as a babyface, he discarded it. Because I don't need no goddamn weight belt to beat your ass. But if we look at the facials of Goldberg over time, as I pointed out earlier about how he's improved his game. His face, say, well, he still did the same moves. Yes, Einstein, he does the same moves, and he does well, and they're all over. When that son of a bitch hits the spear, you know what's next, and you know it's over. So Hogan makes sure that Goldberg knows how to apply a full Nelson, and the back mule kick was the second time we've seen that tonight. A lot of duplicity. So Hogan, hey, I called some matches. Years ago, Lawler and I called some matches back in the day for old stuff that needed revoiced. And Hogan was a heel with Freddie Blassie. He was a hell of a good heel back in those days. He really was. And I know people say, oh, my God, JR's kissing Hogan's ass. I'm just telling you what I saw. He was a different Hogan. And he had a match with babyface Bob Backlund that was just damn near, it was just great. This crowd is just waiting. They're waiting for a spear, and then they know what's next. Hogan's trying to drop those elbows, and he's telling Goldberg to move. He does. That's that clothesline we just saw moments ago is why Goldberg was not a clothesline heavy guy. He didn't do great clotheslines because I think he was a little bit leery of tearing something, pecs or something like that. A lot of guys have issues with that. So Hogan now is trying to contemplate what his next move will be. He's taking a walk. We saw Scott Hall do this exact same thing. Slow it down, let Goldberg regather, figure out where he is in the match, figure out what we have left as Hogan puts his weight belt back on. I'll say this for Hogan. I don't know how old he was here, Conrad, in 1998. Excuse me, but he looks great.
Yes, he does. And by the way, this is a home run. Meltzer's going to write, not that the match and the show didn't work. It couldn't have worked better. Having seen most of the really momentous pops of this generation, from Flair beating Race at the first Starrcade to Hogan beating Iron Sheik to win the title, to the Rougeaus beating the Garvins in a loser leaves town match in Montreal, to Misawa's win over Jumbo Tsuruta at Budokan Hall, and Kerry Von Erich, and Sting's first title win over Flair. This blew almost all of them out of the water. Sure, there was more choreographed modern technology. Nobody piped Kerry chants into the Texas stadium to jumpstart the crowd so it would look good on television. But even so, this reaction was still amazing. It was Goldberg's night in the building. It was more than a weekly TV show and more than most pay-per-view shows. It was perhaps, with the exception of WrestleMania, the event in the U.S. pro wrestling scene for the year. And the anticipation and excitement was every bit the level of the Hogan-Andre series. I mean, really big praise.
And deserved. Objective and deserved. And so now Hogan drops the big leg. I think I said one time in WrestleMania 18, he beat Andre with that move against The Rock. And so he's going to go for a second leg drop because one against Goldberg certainly isn't enough. So he's got one, and then
here comes Kurt for a little help.
Yeah, and this is the watering down process, and I love Kurt Hennig, but man, this match is going so well. So now here come the backup for Hogan, and Goldberg just kicked out of 2 leg drops.
And we missed it. And there's no crowd pop for him kicking out of a leg drop because we're looking at DDP and Rodman.
Yeah, and
here we go. Let's track it.
Here's the diamond cutter. And look at Goldberg. He's ready.
He's poised.
Okay, there's part 1. Now finish him off. Finish him off.
How excited is Bobby Heenan on this call?
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. Listen.
Your career's on the line here. Do it. Do it. This place will erupt when he picks him up.
He's got him up. Oh, hell yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. We've got a new heavyweight champion of the world. The first undefeated man in the history of this sport to ever win the world championship and have a record of 107, 108. Who cares? There's 0 on the other side. We've got a new champion.
Man, what a call.
Yeah, boy, this is so easy. I'm getting chills listening to Bobby. You know, I got goosebumps.
Me too, man.
And I just love that. That's why I love the business so much, for moments like that. I had no dog in the hunt, but I'm a fan.
Yep.
And as a fan, you love those special moments. And this show was a very special moment, a 3-hour moment, but a special moment nonetheless. Hats off to all involved. You know, it was just, look, it's a 3-hour show. What the hell you do?
Right.
But man, the crowd shots are amazing. The packages are amazing. The build up to the last match and the beauty shot there of the Goldberg holding up 2 titles is pretty damn impressive and memorable.
Such good stuff.
The crowd didn't want to leave.
No.
They were loving this feeling, this emotion. It's like when your team wins the biggest game of the year, you don't want to go to your car. You want to stay there and soak it all in. And these fans at 40,000 plus just didn't want to leave. You don't see people rushing to rushing for the exits.
No, they're still standing. They just want to bask in it. And what a moment it is. You see him posing here with the world title and the U.S. title. And I know sometimes fans poke fun at this whenever I point it out, but to me, the parallel between Goldberg and the Ultimate Warrior, never closer than right here. You know, you think back to WrestleMania 6, Warrior comes in with the Intercontinental title. Hogan passes the torch. It's in a dome, huge moment. And afterwards, Warrior holds both belts up with a limited move set, but over like Rover from his entrance and his handful of moves, and fans were just into it, man. And sort of the same thing here for Goldberg at the Georgia Dome.
We got a lot of interesting feedback on the Ultimate Warrior podcast we did here on Grill and JR. I was very interesting to see. And look, some people didn't like it.
Yeah.
So they were like you, they're Ultimate Warrior fans from childhood. And, you know, I think we tried to be fair with it, but, you know, how would you know how he was in real life unless you knew him?
Well, there he is. Goldberg is now top of the heap. And on the other channel, of course, Stone Cold is still running roughshod with Mr. McMahon. And it's a great time to be a wrestling fan, great time to be in the business. And what a visual as the show goes off the air here. The most watched wrestling match in cable history up to that point. And even though you had never seen it before, it makes sense why, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A really good job by both guys. And, you know, like I said, I'm a Goldberg fan, Goldberg friend, but my hat is really off to Hulk Hogan. He made that match happen, and it happened as far as how it turned out, and made it work. So a lot of respect for Hogan on that scenario. He did the right thing, and he made Goldberg look much better than Billy actually was at that point in his career.
Well, and next week we're going to take a look at another physical specimen who would go on to become world champion, but a much different story. Bobby Lashley. What do you think we'll expect to hear next week on the show here, Jim?
A missed opportunity, great talent. I've got stories to share about Bobby. I like Bobby. I'm glad Bobby's still in the game. Good guy. You know, I think Jerry Briscoe started talking to Bobby I believe Bobby was still in the Army, but he made an inquiry, or he was a great amateur. It was Lashley in a small college. He didn't get all the fanfare the D1 guys got, but I'm a big Lashley fan. I think the WWE could do a worse job, and I like Drew McIntyre a lot, but they could do it if the time comes for Bobby Lashley to be a champion there. It ain't going to be a bad move. So it'll be a fun show to talk about, because really nobody's done a lot of stuff of this nature on Bobby Lashley. He's very timely. He's very topical. And what a phenomenal athlete. He has been saddled with some bad creative. But you go back to 2007, Conrad, he was in the main event of WrestleMania. 13 years ago, he headlined WrestleMania. And that Trump thing, the hair versus hair business. So he was, but he was overshadowed. He and Umaga were overshadowed by Vince and Donald Trump and this referee named Stone Cold.
So
we'll talk about the creative. Creative has not been Bobby Lashley's best friend. We'll explain that more next time.
Don't miss it next week right here on Westwood One. It's Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross, heavy on the Mr. And don't forget, you can get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. If you got a question for us, don't hesitate. It's over at JR Grilling on Twitter. He is at JR's BBQ. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we are out of time. And we hope if you're looking for more great JR content, you'll go pick up the brand new book, Under the Black Hat, get it personalized, and go ahead and throw some sauce in your box too, over at jrsbbq.com. And, a lot of folks are grilling this time of year, Jim. You got any grill pointers for us? I mean, I've been firing up the Big Green Egg. I know you're rocking the gas, but one thing we have in common is your all-purpose seasoning. Well, it tastes good on just about everything, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah, man. It's good stuff. I appreciate everybody's support. What we're doing, we're building a fan base of our products, and we're getting a lot of repeat buyers. You don't buy stuff, even from somebody you think you like, online, unless you don't buy it again unless it's good. And we're getting a lot of repeat business, which I'm very grateful. So jrsbbq.com, you can get the book, you can get the product. And one of our two hidden gems have been our beef jerky, which is made per order. It's not sitting in a box somewhere for a month. And it's made here in Oklahoma with Ive Round. It's good stuff. And our mustard. The mustard has got a fan base. So JR's mustard is over. That might be a t-shirt.
Well, and our podcast is over. Until next week, don't you dare miss it. It's Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.